Chapter 1051. She believed that the other party would naturally teach Mo Chenxian a lesson. It was better to leave it to him than to leave it to anyone else. It was the truth. For the sake of that bet, Mo Chenxian almost tore down the entire martial imperial mansion. But he couldn't do anything about it. Mo Chenxian was so angry that he almost vomited blood. At this moment, Tong Hu and the others came back. "Your Highness, this is the information you wanted." A group of people respectfully handed over the information they had received. Mo Chenxian opened it with a gloomy face and then sneered. "Good. Good." He cheered. "It's just as the master of the Soul Institute said." He sneered and said, "Send this news to the master of the Soul Institute. I want Luo Qingtong and the others to be consigned to eternal damnation." Mo Chenxian had found out that Luo Qingtong didn't have any ice soul imprint talent. She was just an ordinary martial artist. How could a martial artist use Yu Wenma's soul skill? Like Su Deheng said, Yu Wenma must have used a forbidden and evil sorcery. Just this point alone was enough to consign Luo Qingtong to eternal damnation. At that time, the Empire of Qin's Holy Academy and even the Holy Dynasty of the Empire of Qin would not tolerate her. At that time, he would teach her a lesson. Mo Chenxuan's face was cold. He was really screwed over by Luo Qingtong this time. The entire martial imperial manor was almost an empty shell. Not only that, but it also became the laughing stock of the Empire of Qin's Holy Academy. The news of him running 10 laps around the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin and shouting that he was *tch spread out from the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin. It almost spread throughout the entire holy capital of the Empire of Qin. When Mo Chenxian went out now, he felt that everyone he met was laughing at him. He was going to be the crown prince of the Empire of Qin and the ruler of the Holy Dynasty in the future, but he had to bear such a stain. He would become the laughing stock of others for the rest of his life. Even if the other party feared him because of his power and status, they could still laugh at him without restraint in private and in their hearts. Thinking of this, Mo Chenxian wished he could eat Luo Qingtong alive. He didn't think that it was because he wanted to plot against Luo Qingtong that he ended up in this state. He would only think that the other party was being disrespectful to him. Mo Chenxuan's eyes were gloomy and cold. After sending the message to Su Deheng, he smiled gloomily. "Luo Qingtong, I'll make you wish you were dead this time." Previously, he had wanted to use Su Deheng to force evil Dr. Ghost Eye to make a move, then think of a way to get the other party to play in his backyard. Even now, he would still do the same. However, after playing with that bitch for a bit, she would be thrown into a brothel. She had caused him to suffer such heavy losses. Naturally, he had to make it up to her. As for Ma Chenyi, Mo Chenxian sneered. Luo Qingtong's incident this time was really an excellent breakthrough point. He didn't need to wait until the future. Perhaps he could pull him down in one fell swoop. At that time, the Empire of Qin and the Holy Dynasty would be under his control. Without Ma Chenyi, who in the royal family would be able to compete with him? When he became the crown prince, and with the help of that grand event, he would enter the realm of his dreams. By then, the old man sitting on the dragon throne would have to give up his position. Thinking of what he had done to the emperor of the Empire of Qin, Mo Chenxian laughed loudly and was very proud of himself. At the same time, in the residence of the Soul Institute master in the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin. Chapter 1052. The aura of the noblewoman was not weaker than that of Su Deheng. She had an extraordinary aura. Her entire body, including her red hairpin and jade bracelet, seemed to be a very powerful spiritual weapon. "Jinue, my daughter." The noblewoman was lying at the head of Su Jinue's bed. She looked at Su Jinue, who was neither a human nor a ghost, with a sorrowful expression. "What's going on?" After crying for a while, she turned around and looked at Su Deheng, who was standing behind her with a dejected look. She said angrily, "My daughter was fine when I left. How did she become like this?" Su Diheng. "Is this how you take care of my daughter?" She looked furious. Who on earth did this to her? Shen Chuyue did not expect that her daughter would become like this after she was summoned back to the Celestial Palace. Su Jinue grew up in the palm of her hand. She gave her everything she wanted and spoiled her to the extreme. But today, someone made her look like a ghost. When Shen Chuyue came back, she almost thought that she had seen a demon at first glance. If it weren't for Su Diheng holding her back, she would have slapped her daughter to death with a slap. As the external deacon of the Celestial Palace, she was quite respected in the 4 great holy dynasties. Even if she went to the other 3 holy dynasties, the experts there had to be respectful to her when they heard of her identity. Now that her daughter had become like this, how could she bear it? Shen Chuyue's face was furious. Her gorgeous face, which was like a hibiscus in autumn, now looked like a ghost. "I suspect that it's Luo Qingtong." Su Diheng's face was as gloomy as hers. He and Shen Chuyue doted on their daughter. Even if Su Jinue broke the sky, they would be there to support her. Now that she had become like this, how could he not be heartbroken? He told her about his conjectures and the recent happenings. Shen Chuyue's face became more and more furious. That Luo Qingtong is so arrogant? Shen Chuyue did not expect that not only was her daughter bullied, but her husband was also humiliated. And the Grand Dean and the others were still helping her. When she heard this, she could no longer bear it. She stood up and said, "I'm going to waste her now. Let's see what Zhu Feng can do to me." Her face was gloomy. Zhu Feng was the name of the Grand Dean. Shen Chuyue called him by his name, as if she did not put him in her eyes. In fact, it was. The Celestial Palace she came from was a sect in the hidden world, and its ranking wasn't weak. Of the Celestial Palace, Shen Chuyue was an outer court deacon, and she had only killed a student of the Great Qin Sacred Academy. She didn't believe that the Grand Principal would dare to do anything to her. However, as soon as she got up, she was stopped by Su Diheng. "No." Su Diheng shook his head. "Zhu Feng and Ma Chunyi are not obstacles to us. But that Luo Qingtong is said to be related to evil Dr. Ghost Eye. You also know that behind evil Dr. Ghost Eye is the Blackfield's underworld venerable. We must have a good reason to deal with her. Furthermore, my daughter's appearance, which is neither human nor ghost, is very likely caused by that evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Even if it's not, we can only ask him for help if we want to cure her. We can't touch Luo Qingtong now." Chapter 1053. If it weren't for his daughter and the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, he wouldn't have stopped Shen Chuyue. In fact, in his opinion, if Luo Qingtong hadn't entered the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin, maybe nothing would have happened to them. Even if the human-faced ghost sore on Su Jinue's body wasn't caused by her, it should have been caused by her anger. Not to mention the humiliation he suffered and Yu Wenma's crippling. All of these made Su Diheng wish he could kill Luo Qing immediately. Blackfield's Mingzun. Shen Chuyue was still angry, and she had a feeling that Su Diheng wouldn't give up no matter what he said. However, when she heard the words, Blackfield's Mingzun, her body instantly froze. Shen Chuyue relied on her identity as an outer elder of Celestial Palace to look down on most of the powerhouses of True Spill Continent. But only the Blackfield's Mingzun, Celestial Palace, and even many sects in the hidden world didn't dare to provoke him. When she heard the name of Yi Qianxian, her aggressive attitude suddenly weakened. "So, we can only let that little bitch be arrogant?" She felt a burst of hatred in her heart. Su Diheng was about to say something when suddenly, Tong Hu and the others asked to see him. Su Diheng let them in. After hearing their intentions, he took the message from them. After he finished reading, his eyes lit up. "Okay." After sending Tong Hu and the others away, Su Diheng laughed and looked at Shen Chuyue. "Madam, We have a reason to deal with that little bitch now. He said and told Shen Chuyue the content of the message sent by Mo Chenxian. Then he said to her, this time we will force her into a desperate situation. Let her ask the evil Dr. Ghost Eye to save her daughter. Su Deheng said coldly. Shen Chuyue glared at him and said, it's rare that we have something on her, of course we have to kill her. You're really old and muddle-headed. Since she has a relationship with the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, we can force her to let the evil Dr. Ghost Eye treat our daughter. Who knows what he will do to our daughter? Not to mention. You said that the evil Dr. Ghost Eye is backed by the Black Fields Ming Zun. If she asks him to help her, with the Black Fields Ming Zun, what could happen to Luo Qingtong? Shen Chuyue's Ming Zun's Ming Zun. While it just so happens that in these 2 days, my sect's outer sect elder, Elder Xia, will be coming. When the time comes, I'll ask him to help me mediate and invite the evil Dr. Ghost Eye from the Black Field to treat our daughter's poison. This way, by the time she knows that something happened to Luo Qingtong and wants to avenge her, it will already be too late. Not to mention, she might not even help Luo Qingtong. After all, who knows if Luo Qingtong is her subordinate? If that's the case, the other party might not offend us for her. Shen Chuyue said confidently. Su Deheng heard this and seemed to agree with her. Then we won't let Luo Qingtong go? We won't let her go. Shen Chuyue said viciously. She caused our daughter to be like this, and your precious disciple. Don't you want to avenge them? When she said this, Su Deheng nodded fiercely. Okay. We'll do as you say. Chapter 1054. Luo Qingtong didn't know this yet. She was taking a stack of things from Yi Qianxian at the moment. What are these? Luo Qingtong blinked and looked at these things in front of her. Aren't you going to deal with Mo Chenxian recently? These are things that are useful to you. Yi Qianmin said as she gently stroked her hair. Her eyes were filled with indifference. He wanted to kill Mo Chenxian last time. But Luo Qingtong stopped him and didn't let him do it. He knew that this woman must be useful to Mo Chenxian. In this case, he helped her to collect some things from Mo Chenxian's power, so that she could use them when she wanted to kill him. Oh. Luo Qingtong responded and then looked through these things. The more she looked, the brighter her eyes became. When she saw that Mo Chenxian even killed the holy emperor of the Empire of Qin and did something to him, Luo Qingtong suddenly jumped up from the chair and threw herself on the man who was sitting lazily on the couch. Ha! With these materials, it's much easier to deal with Mo Chenxian. My lord, you are so nice. Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed, and she laughed so hard that her eyes could not be seen. It involved many secrets of the royal family of the Empire of Qin. If it weren't for Yi Qianxian, Luo Qingtong might not be able to find it out. Mo Chenxian was the king of martial arts of the Empire of Qin, and he was known as the first person after Ma Chenyi. Over the years, some people had regarded him as the candidate to replace the crown prince of Ma Chenyi in the future. Under such circumstances, it was still a little difficult for Luo Qingtong to kill him. Now that Yi Qianren had made a move, everything was resolved. Luo Qingtong kissed Yi Qianxian on the lips. Seeing her action, Yi Qianxian's cold eyes, which seemed to contain countless blood swords, suddenly narrowed. He tilted his head and kissed the girl's lips. After kissing for a while, he snorted in a low and hoarse voice, "Since I am so nice, why don't you give yourself to me?" This woman only knew how to coax him with sweet words. Luo Qingtong's eyes turned slightly, and then she said, "Okay." She said with a smile. Yi Qianming's hand that was staring at her suddenly froze. Then, she abruptly turned around to look at her. "What did you say?" "I said give yourself to me." "Okay." Luo Qingtong said with a smile, calm. Before Yi Qianxian could show his happiness, the girl took out the little pig from her sleeve and stuffed it into his arms. "Okay." Use this to give yourself to me. Humph. Yi Qianxian snorted and threw the little pig away. I am not interested in its body. Luo Qingtong had already died of laughter. She laughed so hard that she fell into Yi Qianxian's arms. Her clear eyes, which were rippling with a faint mist of blood, were soaked with tears, as if they had been washed by water. Her feather-like eyelashes were covered with fine droplets of water, and she looked indescribably cute. Luo Qingtong couldn't stop laughing. She laughed and wiped her tears. Pork is very good, okay? You still dislike it. My family's Hum Ji is a divine pig. Divine pig Hum Ji, who ran far away while howling, please, you must dislike it. Yi Qianxian looked at her complacent smile and couldn't help but grind his teeth. He lowered his head and nibbled on her lips. Luo Qingtong held back her laughter and nibbled back. The two of them laughed together. Chapter 1055. She was no match for this man at all. If he didn't go easy on her, she would be suppressed in a short while. It wasn't fun at all. Luo Qingtong, who didn't gain the upper hand, lay in Yi Qianxian's arms. Suddenly, she seemed to remember something and raised her hand to take his pulse. Yi Qianxian subconsciously blocked her hand, but the girl turned her wrist and avoided it. Luo Qingtong might not be as strong as Yi Qianxian in terms of strength, but in terms of technique and dodging, she was much stronger. After avoiding Yi Qianxian's hand, she took the man's wrist that was exposed outside his sleeve. Let me take a look at your body's condition. This man always showed a very valiant side in front of her. So much so that Luo Qingtong almost forgot that this man's body actually had an extremely serious hidden danger. Normally, when facing her and begging her to save their lives, they would always remind her of their own condition. However, this man didn't say anything, but he was so valiant that it was difficult to detect the weakness in his body. As Luo Qingtong thought of this, she immediately rolled her eyes at Yi Qianxian. Last time, he didn't let her take a look at him because he was afraid that it would affect her cultivation and make her foundation unstable. This time, he did it again. She had already advanced to the martial emperor realm and her realm was temporarily stable. If she didn't take a look now, when would she delay it? The moment Luo Qingtong grabbed Yi Qianxian's wrist, he gave up resisting and withdrew all the strength in his body. Otherwise, if he resisted, it would be easy to injure the girl holding his wrist. Luo Qingtong opened her blood-red eyes. When her aura entered Yi Qianxian's body, she also used her eye technique to check his body. The data of this man's body was still so inhuman. The data of his meridians was still so pitiful. Luo Qingtong took a look and found that the data of his meridians was so weak that it almost fell to the single digits. She immediately frowned and poured her aura into his meridians. Repair. Luo Qingtong's pupil technique flickered. After she had broken through to the martial emperor realm, the mental strength in her body had increased once again. Her pupil special ability had been awakened once again, and she had unlocked a new pupil special ability, Repair. Luo Qingtong's blood-red eyes stared at the incomplete product. Under the influence of her eye technique, the incomplete product would be repaired in her mind. Of course, this kind of completion was done subconsciously. It wasn't really something that was only half left. After Luo Qingtong glanced at it, it became complete. It just became complete in Luo Qingtong's mind. After using this eye technique, a diagram of the man's meridians appeared in Luo Qingtong's mind. The blood-red light in Luo Qingtong's eyes flickered violently, and the numbers on the meridian diagram in her mind were quickly filled up. Luo Qingtong demonstrated how to repair the man's meridians in her mind. She wanted to see what his meridians looked like when he was at his peak, and then compared it with his current situation to see where the problem was. However, the numbers on the meridian diagram in Luo Qingtong's mind only jumped twice. In an instant, with a bang, the blood-red light in Luo Qingtong's eyes suddenly extinguished. Her vision went black, and a sharp pain and dizziness hit her. In an instant, her body leaned back and fell backwards. Qing Tong. Seeing her fall backwards, Yi Qianxian's eyes instantly shrank. He raised his hand and pulled her into his arms, not letting her fall backwards to the ground. What's wrong with you? Chapter 1056. I just overused my mental strength. Everything in front of her was pitch black. She had used her eye technique too much, causing her to temporarily lose her sight. Yi Qianren also noticed the strange look in her eyes. He narrowed his eyes slightly and raised his hand to gently caress the corner of her eyes. You can't see? His voice was low, slightly hoarse, and mesmerizing. It's nothing. I'll be fine in a while. Luo Qingtong didn't hide the abnormality in her eyes in front of him. If it were anyone else, she definitely wouldn't let them discover the secret of her eye technique. But Yi Qianxian was different. She had already exposed most of her secrets to this man. And after spending so much time together, she was already used to trusting him. If he wanted to harm her, he wouldn't have waited until now. Yi Qianxian nodded and didn't ask any more questions. But he didn't let go of Luo Qingtong's hand. Instead, he tightened his grip on her hand. He had long known that her eyes were different from ordinary people's. They seemed to be able to see through everything in the world. Luo Qingtong's various amazing abilities seemed to come from her eyes. This woman had many secrets. But so what? Just like how his heavenly vein body was different from others, what was so strange about her having her own unique abilities? But this woman's abilities were a bit too coveted. Spirit Array Master, Alchemist, Weapon Refiner, as long as it was something that could be seen through with her eyes, she could do it with ease. If others knew about her abilities, she would probably be captured by those large sects and sacred grounds and raised in captivity. She would live a life of imprisonment like a puppet. She would neither live nor die, living like a tool. This was something Yi Qianxian couldn't tolerate. He had to protect this woman firmly. Let her fly freely under his wings, without any scruples. Luo Qi, become a bit stronger. Yi Qianxian gently stroked the girl's smooth face and said in a low voice. That deep voice seemed to drill into Luo Qingtong's ears and into her heart. Only if this woman became stronger could he eliminate the hidden dangers in his body. Only then would he be able to protect her better. Yes. Luo Qingtong nodded. She also felt that she was too weak compared to Yi Qianxian. She had thought that being a martial emperor would be enough for her to probe the other party's body. However, she had not expected that she would exhaust her mental strength as soon as she started probing. This man was truly a pervert. Luo Qingtong raised her hand and poked the man's chest. In the past, it was always others who called her a pervert. Now it was her turn to scold this man. However, Luo Qingtong was never one to admit defeat. The stronger Yi Qianxian became, the more motivated she became. Sooner or later, she would crush this man under her body. Luo Qingtong muttered to herself as she looked at Yi Qianxian's devilishly handsome face. Her eyesight had already recovered. Don't poke randomly. Yi Qianxian groaned as he grabbed Luo Qingtong's small hands that were randomly poking his chest. Did this woman know that this was ***? She had just poked the 2 points on his chest several times. Yi Qianxian was afraid that if he didn't grab her now, he wouldn't be able to hold himself back. Don't play with fire, he said in a hoarse voice. Otherwise, don't blame this sovereign for forcing you. Did this woman really think that he was Lu Xiaohui? She wanted to try poking him again. Chapter 1057. You'll have to be able to catch me first. She laughed. There was a hint of arrogance in her innocence, and an indescribable charm in her wickedness. Especially that pair of bright and colorful eyes, which gave people an indescribable feeling of intelligence and dazzling as they turned craftily. It made her look very charming. Why don't you try? Yi Qianxian looked at Luo Qingtong like this, and his eyes instantly darkened. The emotions inside were surging, more turbulent than before, and undercurrents were surging. He didn't mind if she gave him a chance to make a move. When he caught her, he would never stop. Then forget it. Luo Qingtong looked at him, and her pair of claws, which were held by the man, were indescribably restless. Her unyielding character made her want to continue poking. However, Yi Qianxian's words were too threatening. Luo Qingtong felt the man's unblinking gaze on her. She thought for a moment. Yi Qianxian was all on her now. If he poked her, there would be no chance for her to escape. Thinking of this, she immediately gave up. A wise woman submits to circumstances. She smiled and held the man's hand, saying, "Come on, business is more important. I'll continue to look at your meridians." Yi Qianxian was amused by her crafty look. He knew that this woman wouldn't dare. Cunning. He snorted and pulled her into his arms. His action was overbearing and gentle. "See." He snorted and lowered his head, kissing the girl fiercely. Then, he restrained himself and let her go. Luo Qingtong responded to him with a smile, not hiding her little thoughts and cunning at all. Anyway, in front of this man, her nature had been exposed. So what if she was scared? So what if she only knew how to take advantage of him? Luo Qingtong smiled and transferred the aura in her body into Yi Qianxian's body. This time, she didn't use her ocular ability to restore the man's meridian map like before. Yi Qianxian was too strong. She didn't have enough mental strength to restore his full strength, so she might as well save her energy for something else. Luo Qingtong's aura circulated in his body, just like what she had done to Yi Qianxian in the past. At the same time, she activated her ocular sorcery, which had recovered, and watched as her power flowed through the man's body. Under Luo Qingtong's eye technique, she saw the power she had transferred into the man's body move around in his body and seep into his meridians. Then, another wave of energy came out from it and flowed into her aura. Luo Qingtong snorted softly. When the energy returned to her body after a cycle, she stopped it. "What's wrong?" Yi Qianxian raised his eyebrows as he looked at her and stopped checking his body. "Something's wrong." Luo Qingtong told Yi Qianxian what she had just checked. "Before me, did anyone check your body and find something like this?" "No." Yi Qianxian said straightforwardly. The drawbacks of the heavenly vein body were obvious. It wasn't that no one had checked his body to find an opportunity to extend his life. But without exception, no one had found anything. Only Luo Qingtong. Yi Qianren lowered her head to take a look at her own body. She could clearly feel that her meridians had become stronger. Chapter 1058. That's strange. Luo Qingtong knitted her eyebrows. If only her aura had an effect, then it meant that there was something in her aura that Yi Qianxian's meridians needed. Wait a minute. Luo Qingtong's eyes suddenly lit up. Tian Mingzi said before that I have an innate mixed-element body. Does this have anything to do with it? She looked at the man in front of her, her expression full of hope. If this was the reason, then Yi Qianxian could find another innate mixed-element body. Her strength alone wasn't enough to restore a man's meridians. But if there were a few more people, then it wouldn't be a problem. Luo Qingtong thought and guessed, could it be because I have an innate mixed-element body that can absorb all the power in the world, so after my aura circulated in your body, it absorbed some of your aura? Then this aura was assimilated by my aura, and when it entered your body, it was mistaken for your own aura and then absorbed back, strengthening the meridians in your body? She thought that this was the only reason that made sense. But she just didn't know if this innate mixed-element body was easy to find in this different world. In fact, Luo Qingtong didn't know if this body came from the original owner or from herself. If it was because of the injection of her soul that caused the original owner's body to change and become the same as her previous life, then it would be troublesome. Because Luo Qingtong didn't care about anything in her previous life, she could learn it as soon as she learned it. Although she was ranked first in the ability world, her strength wasn't limited to eye techniques. She had practiced all kinds of martial arts without any hindrance. In fact, if it wasn't for the lack of spiritual energy on Earth in the 24th century, Luo Qingtong might have been able to cultivate successfully. This was also the reason why Luo Qingtong was quickly familiar with the power system and martial arts cultivation here after transmigrating to this different world. Otherwise, even with the eye technique, she wouldn't have been able to immediately use the original owner's power to kill all the black-clothed people when she transmigrated. That shouldn't be the reason, Yi Qianxian said in a low voice. If that's the case, then storing the energy in my body and transferring it back to my body, wouldn't it strengthen my meridians? But in reality, he looked at the beautiful girl in front of him with sparkling eyes. The strength of my meridians has always been weakening. He looked at Luo Qingtong and nodded slightly. In this world, the one who wants me dead is the heavenly Tao. Therefore, what Luo Qingtong said about his power being assimilated after entering her body and then being absorbed by his own power to repair his meridians was impossible. Otherwise, with the strength of his heavenly veins body, how could his meridians be so weak? Therefore, Luo Qingtong's power was able to repair his meridians. There must be other reasons. Heavenly Tao. When Luo Qingtong heard him say this, she remembered the special nature of Yi Qianxian's heavenly veins body. Before, she subconsciously treated Yi Qianxian's condition as a general difficult disease to treat. But in fact, Yi Qianxian's condition wasn't an illness. She was able to repair his meridians not because of her medical skills. It was because of another reason. Luo Qingtong thought so and frowned. Apart from her innate mixed yuan body, was there anything special in her body that Yi Qianxian needed? Chapter 1059. Luo Qingtong shook her head as she thought of this. Her Dou technique was an auxiliary ability, which had nothing to do with the power in her body. This shouldn't be the reason. Luo Qingtong couldn't think of anything, so she could only give up in the end. It couldn't be because her power was more delicious than Yi Qianxian's, so the way of heaven absorbed her power and let go of Yi Qianxian's meridians, right? She curled her lips as she thought of this, and then suddenly froze. Wait. The way of heaven absorbed her power, but it didn't absorb Yi Qianxian's? Luo Qingtong carefully recalled this sentence that suddenly appeared in her mind, and she seemed to think of something. If the way of heaven could absorb her power, it wouldn't absorb Yi Qianxian's. Then could they find a way to replace it with something else? Luo Qingtong thought of this, and in an instant, a certain thought in her mind became clearer. Yi Qianxian was the same as her. Maybe he also went astray on this matter. She remembered that the man had told her before that except for her, other people's power had no effect on the meridians in his body. But if he didn't have the power of people, what about the power of things? Luo Qingtong thought of this, and in an instant, the light in her eyes became brighter and brighter. She suddenly threw herself into Yi Qianxian's arms and said happily, "I got it." She told him all her thoughts, and then said to the man, "You've tried countless ways. Have you tried to guide the power of some kind of treasure into your body to see if it can weaken the weakening of your meridians by the way of heaven?" After hearing her thoughts, Yi Qianxian was also thoughtful for a while. Then he shook his head and said, "No." He used to treat the weakening of his meridians as a kind of disease. He relied on the power of the medicinal liquid to temporarily repair and stabilize the strength of his meridians. But as he became stronger and stronger over the years, those medicinal liquids were no longer useful. Elder Yu was also helpless. Now that he heard Luo Qingtong's idea, he felt that he might be able to give it a try. Luo Qingtong also had the same idea. She nodded seriously and said, "Go and collect some treasures related to the power of the heavenly Tao. Who knows, maybe one of their powers can counteract the power of the heavenly Tao that is weakening you." The weakening of Yi Qianxian's heavenly vein physique came from the mysterious influence of the heavenly Tao. Since his power was effective against him, perhaps those treasures would be effective as well. Even if he could not completely cure the hidden danger of the man's meridians constantly weakening, he could try his best to prolong and reduce the heavenly Tao's influence on him. Yes. I'll give it a try then. Yi Qianxian nodded. Indeed, he had never thought of such a method before. Once he was done with the matters here, he would return to the other side to collect such treasures. Ha! Luo Qingtong laughed happily. If this method really worked on Yi Qianxian, that would be great. In this way, the hidden danger in the man's body could be controlled to a certain extent. Once his strength increased in the future, he could specifically help him investigate and see what exactly was in his body that affected his meridians. Then he could prescribe the right medicine and completely solve the hidden danger in his body. Luo Qingtong thought like this, and suddenly her heart was greatly shaken. She continued to pour her aura into Yi Qianxian's body, circulating it in his meridians. Both of their auras were slowly changing and strengthening. Chapter 1060. His aura overflowed like a gentle breeze, blowing his and Luo Qingtong's sleeves and hair. Inside the room, it was as if they were outside in the courtyard. While Luo Qingtong was in this cycle, the man's aura constantly mixed with her aura and surged into her body, causing the aura in her body to constantly rise. However, her current cultivation was not as weak as before. When Yi Qianxian's aura entered her body, it was no longer uncontrollable like before, soaring like a rocket. This made Luo Qingtong feel a lot more relieved. The two of them were busy in the room for most of the day. When Luo Qingtong's aura no longer had any effect on Yi Qianxian's meridians, Luo Qingtong's strength had entered the level of a low-level martial emperor in this continuous cycle. Although she did not know how much Yi Qianxian's strength had recovered, the dignified and deep aura around him had deepened a lot. The blood-red sword in his eyes was even sharper, as if it was going to materialize and rush out. Luo Qingtong knew that Yi Qianxian's strength must have recovered a lot. No, the word recovered could not be used. The man's strength had always been there. It was just that because of the limit of his meridians, he could not exert it. How much have you improved? Luo Qingtong looked at Yi Qianxian with a smile and asked. Now I should be able to exert 1/10 of my strength. Yi Qianxian felt the strength in his body and narrowed his eyes slightly. I'll go out for a while. As he spoke, he dashed out of the room with a whoosh. In the courtyard outside, Feng Yu was hiding in a dark corner. Then he heard Yi Qianxian's voice. Follow me. He wanted to find a place to test his strength. Yes. At this time, Feng Yu also felt the difference in his master's aura. Suddenly, his eyes lit up and he rushed out with Yi Qianxian. Seeing the two figures disappear in the courtyard, Luo Qingtong's lips twitched and then she fell asleep. After working for half a day, she was exhausted. She did not even have time to check the situation in her body before she fell asleep. The next morning, Luo Qingtong woke up with a yawn. There was still no sign of Yi Qianxian. She did not know where he and Feng Yu went to test their strength. However, when Luo Qingtong thought of Yi Qianxian's extraordinary strength, she knew that the two were definitely not near the holy capital of the Empire of Qin. Otherwise, she did not know how big a commotion. She wanted to get out of bed and wash up. Then, she began to check the condition of her body. Her strength was already at the level of a low-level martial emperor. However, there were no signs of breaking through to the mid-level martial emperor. After all, Luo Qingtong's current strength was no longer like when she was at the martial master or great martial master level. She could not break through by just absorbing a little bit of Yi Qianxian's strength. Moreover, after reaching the martial emperor level, she could only rely on her own comprehension to advance. It was impossible to rely on external forces. After all, at this level, she had already begun to touch the power of heaven and earth. It was not just a simple increase in strength that could continue to advance. As Luo Qingtong thought about it, she stopped probing her body. At this time, Su Xiaoxiao and the others' voices came from outside. Chapter 1061. Luo Qingtong stepped into the hall. In the hall, Yu Qingwei was waiting with a group of people from the Qingwei group. Seeing Luo Qingtong come in, she immediately stood up and nodded to her. "Junior sister Luo, I brought them here to apologize." Yu Qingwei had wholeheartedly accepted her loss in that battle. That masked girl's alchemy skills were simply too strong. Her title as the honorary lead alchemist was well deserved. And the people from the Qingwei group were extremely grateful to Luo Qingtong for not pursuing Yu Qingwei's responsibility. They were originally going to apologize after the battle. But because of that battle, Yu Qingwei had been inspired by Luo Qingtong's pill refining process and went into seclusion for a while. Her alchemy skills had greatly improved. That was why he had waited until today to apologize to the Heavenly Evil group. "Junior sister Luo, we're sorry." Luo Yiran and the others stepped forward and bowed to Luo Qingtong after Yu Qingwei's words. They were already filled with regret for the previous matter. Speaking of which, they didn't have any conflicts or grudges with Luo Qingtong and the others. Just because of Mo Yufei's words, they had developed prejudice against Luo Qingtong and attacked the Heavenly Demon group. They couldn't blame anyone else for falling to this state. They apologized one by one. Especially when facing Su Xiaoxiao, Luo Yiran and the others were even more sincere. Their faces were burning with pain. They had ruthlessly humiliated Su Xiaoxiao before, but the result was that they were slapped in the face by her. Standing in front of Su Xiaoxiao now, they were really embarrassed. Their previous arrogance had all turned into unbearable memories. They wished they could dig a hole and hide in it. After the Qingwei group finished apologizing, Yu Qingwei looked at Luo Qingtong and nodded. "Junior sister Luo, please help me tell the honorary lead alchemist that I thank her this time." Yu Qingwei didn't know that the honorary lead alchemist was Luo Qingtong. She had benefited a lot from the battle this time. He had truly entered the realm of a quasi-alchemist. In her opinion, if the other party had not pleaded for leniency, Luo Qingtong would not have forgiven the Qingwei group so easily. Thus, Yu Qingwei was very grateful to him. "Sure." Luo Qingtong looked at her and smiled. At this moment, she saw Yu Qingwei say, "But I won't give up on His Highness. Junior sister Luo, I will compete with you fairly in the future." Pooh! When Luo Qingtong heard this, she almost choked on her own saliva. Oh my God! When she came back to her senses, her first reaction was that it was a good thing that Yi Qianxian was out. Otherwise, who knew what would happen if he heard what she had said? This was simply too deceptive. Little Pig, who was squatting on her shoulder, also twitched his lips. "You misunderstood. I have no relationship with His Highness." Luo Qingtong waved her hand and hurriedly clarified her relationship with Ma Chenyi. She didn't want to carry the title of Ma Chenye's love and Ma Chenye's love. It wasn't that she was afraid of what Yi Qianxian would do to her if he found out. She was afraid that he would cut off Ma Chenye's head. Then the latter was simply too wronged. Really? On the other side, Yu Qingwei was still bashfully challenging Luo Qingtong. When she heard this, her eyes suddenly lit up. She looked at Luo Qingtong with pleasant surprise. "It's true, it's true." Luo Qingtong hurriedly nodded. Yu Qingwei didn't want to cause more trouble for Ma Chenyi. If Yi Qianxian really misunderstood, Ma Chenyi wouldn't know how unlucky he would be. Chapter 1062. Good. I believe in you. Yu Qingwei looked at Luo Qingtong and solemnly nodded. Her eyebrows rose up, her eyes filled with joy. "Then I'm sorry, junior apprentice sister Luo, I misunderstood you." After learning that Luo Qingtong wasn't her love rival, Yu Qingwei's entire being seemed to come alive. She was originally a quiet young girl that had walked out from a painting of an elegant lady. Now, Her entire body was brimming with vitality. Hearing that, Luo Qingtong heaved a sigh of relief. She waved her hand towards Yu Qingwei, about to speak. At this time, a group of people rushed in from outside. Luo Qingtong. This group of people wore the uniform of the Holy Academy's Council of Elders. They coldly looked at her and said, "Someone reported that you cheated in your gambling match with Yuan Mo and used evil techniques. This matter is of great importance. Please come with us." As these words came out, Su Xiaoxiao and the others were startled. They originally wanted to ask why they had rushed in. "That's impossible. It's impossible for my boss to use evil techniques." Su Xiaoxiao and the others were no longer the same as when they had just entered the Holy Academy. They naturally knew that being accused of using evil techniques was a serious accusation. In the true Spill continent, martial artists and soul cultivators that used evil techniques were the most despised. This was different from forbidden techniques. No matter how sinister a forbidden technique was, the ones that were harmed were the martial artist and soul master that used the forbidden technique. But evil techniques were different. If one said that forbidden techniques sacrificed oneself to harm others, then evil techniques harmed others to benefit oneself. Forbidden techniques harmed oneself to obtain strength that surpassed oneself. But evil techniques robbed others to obtain strength that one didn't have. The nature of these two were completely different. In the true Spill continent, once someone that used evil techniques was discovered, they would immediately be besieged and hunted down. But in the four great holy dynasties, evil techniques were explicitly forbidden. Once discovered, they would be severely punished. Luo Qingtong had been accused of using evil techniques. Once this crime was established, crippling her cultivation and banishing her would be a light punishment. As Su Xiaoxiao and the others thought this, their hearts were suddenly filled with unspeakable anger and anxiety. Humph! Whether or not it is true, we'll know once we arrive at the Holy Academy's Council of Elders. The leader of the law enforcement team of the Sacred Academy said. "Take him away." He waved his hand fiercely. Immediately, a group of law enforcement team members behind him rushed out and grabbed Luo Qingtong. "Boss!" Seeing this, Su Xiaoxiao and the others panicked. They rushed forward and stood in front of Luo Qingtong. "Right at this moment, stand down." Luo Qingtong's voice sounded. Then, her body suddenly moved. Bang bang bang. The members of the law enforcement team, who were trying to grab Luo Qingtong, screamed and flew backwards. Their bodies crashed heavily onto the ground. When the leader saw this, his expression suddenly changed, and he glared at Luo Qingtong and said angrily, "You dare resist? Luo Qingtong, are you admitting that you used evil techniques and want to escape punishment?" As he said this, he looked at Luo Qingtong with vigilance, his hand already holding the signal to gather everyone. Luo Qingtong coldly looked at them. She waved her hand and brushed off the dust on her sleeves, her voice cold. "I'll go with you. But, if you dare to touch me again, I'll cripple you." The young girl's eyes flashed with a faint blood-red light. Chapter 1063. Luo Qingtong would never be courteous to those who dared to lay their hands on her. Did these people really think that she was a prisoner? Luo Qingtong sneered. With a wave of her sleeve, she walked towards the elders of the Holy Academy. She already had a premonition that someone was trying to deal with her. "Boss!" Seeing Luo Qingtong walking towards the elders of the Holy Academy, Su Xiaoxiao and the others quickly followed. They didn't believe that Luo Qingtong would use sorcery. With the latter's strength and ability, how could she need to use sorcery to win against Yuan Ma? Knowing Luo Qingtong's identity and strength, Su Xiaoxiao's people didn't believe a word of the Holy Academy's law enforcement team. However, it was true that someone was trying to deal with Luo Qingtong. They didn't know who was so vicious. They actually framed their boss with such a crime. It was really hateful. Su Xiaoxiao and the others thought and immediately gritted their teeth. After they left, the people of the Qingwei group also looked at each other for a while. They didn't expect that when they came to apologize, they would run into such a thing. Luo Qingtong used sorcery to deal with Yuan Ma. This crime was not an ordinary one. If it was true, then Luo Qingtong would definitely be crippled. They looked at the girl next to them who was like a willow tree. Senior sister? They looked at her inquisitively. Let's go and take a look together. Yu Qingwei pondered for a moment and said. Then she said to a member of the Qingwei group, go and inform His Highness the Crown Prince that something happened to Luo Qingtong. Tell him to hurry to the elders of the Holy Academy. Let's go. Yu Qingwei didn't have much interaction with Luo Qingtong, but the girl didn't look like someone who would use sorcery. There might be something going on. Thinking of how Ma Chunyi protected her, Yu Qingwei thought for a while and decided to take people to take a look. The elders of the Holy Academy supported Mo Chenxian. For the sake of Ma Chunyi, Yu Qingwei naturally couldn't just watch and do nothing. What's more, after this gambling battle, Luo Qingtong did not continue to pursue the matter of the Qingwei group. Yu Qingwei still owed her a favor. With that thought in mind, she immediately said to the Qingwei group member, also, inform the Grand Dean. Let him know about it. After explaining everything, Yu Qingwei and the others immediately headed towards the Holy Institute's elders. At the same time, in the Elders' Guild of the Sacred Academy, Su Deheng and Shen Qiuyue were already waiting there. Beside them sat Mo Chenxian, whose face was full of joy. I didn't expect great teacher to change his mind and not let go of Luo Qingtong. This is exactly what I want. Mo Chenxian smiled and said to Su Deheng. He also greeted Shen Qiuyue respectfully. Shen Qiuyue was the person he had been trying to win over. If he had her support, he wouldn't be afraid of losing to Ma Chunyi in the imperial court. She was the external deacon of the Celestial Palace. The latter had been the crown prince for a long time. So what if he had a lot of power and connections? As long as Shen Qiuyue supported him, he could pull the other party down from the throne before his strength surpassed Ma Chunyi's. Mo Chenxian was so close to Yuan Ma before because of this. And not long ago, Shen Qiuyue told him coldly that she would support him to fight for the throne. Thinking of this, Mo Chenxian suddenly smiled proudly. Speaking of which, he had to thank Luo Qingtong. If Ma Chunyi hadn't been on good terms with her and protected her in every way possible, how could Shen Qiuyue support him to fight for the throne so easily? Chapter 1064. Thinking of this, Mo Chenxian felt indescribably happy. He said to Su Deheng and Shen Qiuyue, since you two hate Luo Qingtong so much, why don't you send her to me for training? He smiled viciously and said, it just so happens that I also have some grudges against her. I have plenty of people under me who can teach her a lesson and make her wish she was dead. I don't need to dirty your hands. Okay. Shen Qiuyue sneered. Then I'll leave her to you. I will take Jinyue to see what kind of miserable situation she is in at that time. Su Deheng also sneered and nodded. Killing Luo Qingtong directly was certainly not better than torturing her and then killing her. Anyway, as long as it was confirmed that she used witchcraft, who knew what would happen to her after she was expelled from the hospital? Even if she was kidnapped by them, no one would know. At that time, they would see how miserable Luo Qingtong was, which could be regarded as revenge for Jinyue and Yuan Mo. In the seats of the elders of the Sacred Academy, the first elder of the Sacred Academy and others also looked cold. Humph, I didn't expect that Luo Qingtong would have such a day. The people of the elders of the Sacred Academy hated Luo Qingtong no less than Su Deheng and Mo Chenxian. Since they were slapped in the face by Luo Qingtong when they tried to expel her from the hospital, they were completely excluded from the core of the Sacred Academy. All the core of the Sacred Academy was controlled by the Grand Dean's faction. Not only that, they also became the laughingstock of the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin. When they heard that Su Deheng and others sued Luo Qingtong for using witchcraft, they immediately sent people to catch Luo Qingtong. Not only that, they also had the same idea as Mo Chunxian. The latter wanted to lead the matter to Ma Chunyi. They wanted to shift the blame onto the Grand Supreme Dean. After all, how could someone like Luo Qingtong, who came from an inferior country, come into contact with things like witchcraft? Naturally, someone had given it to her. What kind of person was that? The group of elders from the Holy Academy sneered. The biggest possibility was evil Dr. Ghost Eye. But who would find trouble with her? They would only put this hat on the Grand Supreme Dean's head. As for evidence, wouldn't it be easy to forge? As long as they could confirm that Luo Qingtong had indeed used sorcery, they could guarantee that the Grand Principal would not be able to get away with it. Apart from that, there was also the Crown Prince. By then, he would be able to kill 3 birds with 1 stone, and the matter would be resolved perfectly. As for the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, as long as she wasn't an idiot, she wouldn't jump out and say that she was the one who gave him the sorcery. What's more, he might not even know about this. By the time she found out, the matter had already been settled. As the group of people thought about this, they all began to laugh coldly. He calmly waited for Luo Qingtong's arrival. At this moment, Luo Qingtong might have been escorted here with a disheveled look. The first elder of the Holy Academy and others sneered. They specially told the law enforcement team of the Holy Academy to come here in a disheveled and humiliating way. Just when this group of people was thinking about this, bang! The door of the Elders' Academy of the Holy Academy was suddenly kicked open. Then, a figure was kicked in from the outside. Ah! Hearing the person's painful cry and the figure rolling in, the group of Elders' Academy of the Holy Academy showed a trace of satisfaction and sneer on their faces. Was Luo Qingtong kicked in? The group of people thought calmly. Chapter 1065. Because they suddenly realized that something was wrong with the cry. It didn't seem to be a woman's voice, but a man's. Thinking of this, they immediately raised their eyes and looked ahead. With one look, their faces were instantly filled with rage. Luo Qingtong. What do you mean by this? At the front gate, the golden bronze door was wide open. The figure who was kicked in was lying on the ground. A figure dressed in fiery red clothes suddenly walked in from the gate and stepped on the figure. Only then did the elders of the Sacred Academy see clearly that the red figure was Luo Qingtong. And the figure under her foot was the member of the law enforcement team they sent to catch Luo Qingtong. Luo Qingtong. Seeing that the scene before them was completely different from what they had imagined, the group of elders from the Sacred Academy was infuriated. You're too arrogant. The crowd shouted angrily. This woman had already been exposed for using sorcery, but she still dared to be so arrogant and wanton. Did she really think that they wouldn't dare to do anything to her? Or did she think that the Grand Dean would be able to protect her? Unfortunately, she was wrong. Not to mention her, even the Grand Dean would be in trouble today. Facing the anger of the elders of the Sacred Academy, Luo Qingtong looked indifferent. She looked at them with a sneer and said, "Elders, what do you think is not arrogant?" As she spoke, she kicked the figure of the law enforcement team away with a sneer. She had just said that if anyone dared to touch her again, she would cripple them. But they still dared to do it. Did they think that she wouldn't dare to do anything to them at the elders of the Sacred Academy? Luo Qingtong's face was cold. Her eyes swept over the law enforcement team members who came in behind her. First Elder. Elders. The law enforcement team members limped in while supporting each other. They looked at Luo Qingtong with fear and resentment. Especially the leader of the law enforcement team. This woman dared to cripple them. And in front of the elders of the Sacred Academy. How dare she? His expression was one of shock and fury. He was the one who had ordered the law enforcement team member to sneak attack Luo Qingtong. She had thought that Luo Qingtong would not dare to make a move after arriving here since she was so fierce. However, she didn't expect that she would directly cripple the law enforcement team member who had just made a move. The leading member of the law enforcement team was about to pounce on him. After Luo Qingtong made her move, he didn't dare to move. "Great elders, you must uphold justice for us." The group of people knelt on the ground and cried. "We were ordered to capture her, but she beat us up. Elders, Luo Qingtong is completely ignoring the rules of the Holy Academy and the Elders Association." The group of people knelt on the ground and cried. The members of the Elders Association of the Sacred Academy looked at the group of law enforcement team members who limped in from outside and almost fainted in an instant. It turned out that Luo Qingtong not only beat up a law enforcement team member of the Sacred Academy, but also beat up all the people they had sent. How dare she? Luo Qingtong. You've gone too far. You've despised the Elders Association and ignored the rules of the Sacred Academy. Guards! The members of the Elders Association of the Sacred Academy flew into a rage. They were about to call people to arrest Luo Qingtong. Chapter 1066. Luo Qingtong's voice sounded. That's because they deserve to be beaten. Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold. She stood in the middle of the hall of the elders of the Sacred Academy and slowly walked to the front of the members of the law enforcement team. She lifted her leg with a sneer and kicked the leader of the law enforcement team out with a bang. Luo Qingtong. Before the members of the elders of the Sacred Academy could do anything, Luo Qingtong's cold voice sounded. Since the elders want to talk about the rules with me, then I'll talk about the rules with you. I'm still a student of the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin. Before I'm expelled from the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin, these members of the law enforcement team have no right to beat me up. Luo Qingtong sneered and flicked her sleeves. According to the rules of the Sacred Academy, if they beat me up, I'm qualified to fight back. Beat them up? Luo Qingtong lifted her leg and kicked another member of the law enforcement team out. That's because they deserve to be beaten up. Luo Qingtong had long known that the members of the elders of the Sacred Academy were up to no good. Why did they send people to catch her? Why? Even if someone accused her of using witchcraft, before she was officially expelled from the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin, she was still a student of the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin. These members of the law enforcement team dared to beat her up, let alone beat them up. Even if she beat them to death, what could the members of the elders of the Sacred Academy do to her? Did they really think that she was a little girl who had never seen the world? She would be beaten up by the members of the law enforcement team just because she was a little frightened by the complaint? Luo Qingtong's words instantly made the members of the elders of the Sacred Academy speechless. Previously, they had indeed thought that Luo Qingtong would be scared silly by this battle and wanted to teach her a lesson in advance. At the same time, they could also vent their resentment from being humiliated by her previously. They thought that Luo Qingtong wouldn't dare to fight back. He didn't expect her to be so bold and so meticulous. At this time, he had already been exposed for using sorcery, yet he still dared to be so high-profile and arrogant. Good. Good. All right. Everyone was so angry that their hearts hurt. They gritted their teeth and sneered at her. You're right this time. Luo Qingtong, the law enforcement team of the Sacred Academy attacked you. You didn't do anything wrong by fighting back. As the group of people spoke, their hearts were filled with hatred. Just bear with her for now. Once she was convicted of the crime, she would suffer a fate worse than death. She had to return all the slaps to her face. With that thought in mind, the group of elders of the Sacred Academy wanted to drag the members of the enforcement team away. The latter and the others had failed to complain and were beaten instead. Their faces were filled with dejection and they no longer dared to make a sound. He was about to leave with his tail between his legs. Luo Qingtong opened her mouth. Wait, have I finished talking about this? Luo Qingtong looked at them coldly. Luo Qingtong, what are you trying to do? This is the elders of the Sacred Academy. It's not a place where you can behave atrociously. The group of elders of the Sacred Academy was instantly furious. Were they trying Luo Qingtong or were they trying Luo Qingtong? Luo Qingtong had gone too far. They attacked me. Shouldn't they be punished? How could Luo Qingtong be so easy to deal with? The people of the elders of the Sacred Academy were already coming for her. In this case, it didn't matter whether they shed all pretense of cordiality or not. She wasn't the kind of person who would suffer losses. These people wanted to attack her and put her on trial? Fine. Let's wait until she was done. Let's take care of everything. Chapter 1067. Didn't you already beat them up to this state? Isn't this a lesson? The elders of the Sacred Academy were almost angered to death by Luo Qingtong. She had beaten up the law enforcement team sent by them, and now she was still talking to them? What else did she want? Luo Qingtong, they attacked you, and you have already fought back. This matter is now even. The elders of the Sacred Academy said coldly. Even? Luo Qingtong looked at them with a faint smile. Su Xiaoxiao and the others had already caught up with her at this time. When they saw Luo Qingtong standing alone in the hall of the elders of the Sacred Academy and confronting the members of the elders of the Sacred Academy, they immediately rushed over and stood behind her, expressing their support for her with practical actions. Luo Qingtong glanced at them from the corner of her eyes, and suddenly felt a wave of warmth and comfort in her heart. She raised her hand, and a chair not far away was instantly pulled over by her. After placing the chair behind her, Luo Qingtong flicked her sleeves and sat on it. She looked up at the elders of the Sacred Academy, who were so angered by her actions that they were dizzy and were about to scold her. She raised her hand and took out a token. She fiddled with the token in her hand, then looked up and smiled. As a student of the Heavenly Palace, they are indeed even with me. But as a holder of the Saint token, they attacked me, which is an offense against their superiors. After being beaten up, they should be punished more severely. Otherwise, where will the rules of the Sacred Academy exist? Where will the dignity of the Sacred Academy exist? The words that the elders of the Sacred Academy had scolded Luo Qingtong before were all returned by her. Luo Qingtong beckoned Yuan Hu and the others to press all the law enforcement team members to the ground. Cripple them. Her voice was cold. These law enforcement team members were ordered by the elders of the Sacred Academy to arrest her, but they secretly wanted to humiliate her. They even wanted to plot against her. And then they complained in front of the elders of the Sacred Academy. Did they think that she didn't see their resentful eyes just now? Luo Qingtong sneered. Since they hated her so much, it didn't matter if they hated her more. Luo Qingtong was not the kind of person to be unforgiving. But if they were courting death, then she didn't mind fulfilling their wish. Saint token. Looking at the thing in Luo Qingtong's hand, the elders of the Sacred Academy were shocked and then furious. The Grand Principal actually gave such a thing to Luo Qingtong? What a bastard! What did he take the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin? His personal territory? Even something like a saint token could be given away so casually. The elders of the Sacred Academy's TT, especially the first elder of the Sacred Academy. He originally thought that using such a despicable method to pull down the Grand Principal and the others wasn't good. But now, looking at the saint token in Luo Qingtong's hand, he was so angry that he trembled all over. He wished he could drive Din Din and the others out of the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin right now. However, they didn't know that the saint token in Luo Qingtong's hand had nothing to do with Din Din at all. They were the spoils of war that she had obtained after defeating Saint Meng. Din Din had wanted to take it back. But he didn't succeed. Now that Luo Qingtong took out the saint token, these law enforcement team members made a big mistake by attacking her. Bang, bang, bang. Chapter 1068. Ah! Amid the shrill screams, the members of the law enforcement team were rolling on the ground. Their hearts were filled with regret. If they had known that provoking Luo Qingtong would lead to such a result, they would never have attacked her in order to curry favor with the elders of the Sacred Academy. It had nothing to do with them at all. It was the elders of the Sacred Academy who wanted to deal with Luo Qingtong. They only needed to bring her to the Sacred Academy. It was too late for them to regret. No one had expected that Luo Qingtong would have the Sacred Academy token. The latter had never been revealed, and had never been taken out. They were in pain and regretful. The shrill screams almost resounded throughout the hall of the elders of the Sacred Academy. Hearing these ear-piercing screams, the members of the Council of Elders of the Sacred Institute turned pale. Luo Qingtong's slap was very loud. They had sent these people to catch Luo Qingtong, but now they were crippled in front of them. And they couldn't do anything to Luo Qingtong. The group of people gritted their teeth so hard that the sound of grinding could be heard. Luo Qingtong, how are you? You're doing very well. The elders of the Sacred Academy pointed at her, their faces full of ferocity and anger. Of course I'm doing very well. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent as she squinted her eyes. These people wanted to deal with her? It was ridiculous. She was sure that the one who would be punished later would not be her. Well, didn't the elders of the Sacred Academy come to me to talk about cheating? We can start now. Luo Qingtong raised her hand and flicked her sleeves. Her face was indescribably careless, as if she didn't take the elders of the Sacred Academy seriously at all. The girl's face was gorgeous, delicate, enchanting, and domineering. Sitting on the wide chair like this, his aura instantly overwhelmed the group of elders of the Holy Academy opposite him. People who didn't know better would think that the people who were waiting for trial were the elders of the Sacred Academy. Looking at Luo Qingtong's domineering and careless appearance, the elders of the Sacred Academy gnashed their teeth even louder. Luo Qingtong, wait and see. She would regret it later. The elders of the Sacred Academy inhaled and exhaled again, and finally calmed down. If they couldn't calm down, they would probably faint on the spot. Good. Good. They said coldly, let's start. The rhythm of the elders of the Sacred Academy was smashed by Luo Qingtong's unconventional moves. They were going to punish Luo Qingtong directly, and then snorted and let her to confess the matter. In this way, they could vent their anger and see Luo Qingtong in a sorry state. Then, they could finally beat her to the bottom of the mud. But the result? The elders of the Sacred Academy looked at Luo Qingtong, who was sitting comfortably on the chair. The word start was incomparably sullen and gloomy. The Seoul Institute's great teacher and the others also stared sullenly at the scene. This is that Luo Qingtong? Shen Chuyue looked at Luo Qingtong, who was sitting on the wide chair, and said with a serious expression. When Luo Qingtong arrived, they were prepared to see a joke. In the end, they saw a joke. However, it wasn't the joke of Luo Qingtong that they had imagined. Instead, it was the joke of the elders of the Sacred Academy, who had been humiliated to the point that they wished they were dead. Shen Chuyue, who saw Luo Qingtong for the first time, finally understood why her husband, daughter, and Yuan Ma had suffered so much at the hands of Luo Qingtong. She was indeed not ordinary. But so what? Chapter 1069. Shen Chuyue's eyes were filled with murderous intent. Luo Qingtong also looked over at Su Deheng and the others after the elders of the Sacred Academy spoke. When she saw Shen Chuyue's murderous gaze, she suddenly narrowed her eyes. Who was the other party? She looked up slightly and glanced at the position and distance between Su Deheng and Shen Chuyue. She suddenly guessed the relationship between the two. If she guessed correctly, the other party should be Su Jinyue's mother? As expected, they were a family. Were they here to seek revenge from him? When Luo Qingtong came, she had already guessed that Su Deheng and Mo Chenxian were probably behind this. Now it seemed that it was indeed so. However, Su Jinyue's mother was also involved in this matter. It was said that the wife of the Seoul Institute's great teacher had an extraordinary status. Su Jinyue relied on their love and care to be very arrogant in the sacred academy of the Empire of Qin. Almost no one dared to provoke her. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes slightly. At this moment, the people from the Qingwei group arrived. Junior sister Luo. Yu Qingwei led her people to Luo Qingtong's side and saw the latter sitting on a wide chair with a relaxed and comfortable look. She was instantly stunned. Why was this not the scene she had imagined? Yu Qingwei's expression was blank. She thought that she would see Luo Qingtong being targeted when she came over. She had originally planned to bring the people from the Qingwei group to block for Luo Qingtong if the elders of the Sacred Academy went too far. But now, what was going on? The group was a little confused. However, Yu Qingwei still subconsciously led the people from the Qingwei group to stand on Luo Qingtong's side. Senior sister Qingwei. Luo Qingtong was also a little surprised to see the people from the Qingwei group. She didn't expect Yu Qingwei to bring the people from the Qingwei group here. Although she had left in front of the Qingwei group. However, in such a situation, wouldn't most people be wise enough to protect themselves? Junior sister Luo, don't be afraid. Yu Qingwei's lips couldn't help but twitch. Luo Qingtong didn't look scared at all. Her lips twitched as she continued, I've already informed His Highness the Crown Prince and the Grand Principal. The two of them should be here soon. Yu Qingwei had just finished speaking when Ma Chenyi and the Grand Principal appeared outside the door at the same time. The two of them were followed by a group of people. They were in a hurry as they strode into the hall. Qing Tong. Girl, are you all right? The Grand Principal took a step forward and rushed in front of Luo Qingtong. Nothing must happen to this girl. Otherwise, that fiend Yi Qianxian would tear down the empire of Qin's Holy Academy. And it was the kind that couldn't be stopped. The Grand Principal's figure was anxious and Ma Chenyi wasn't much better behind him. He stepped through the door with a heavy expression. After seeing that Luo Qingtong was safe and sound, his expression relaxed a little. Whether it was in terms of justice or personal relations, he didn't want to see anything happen to Luo Qingtong. First Elder. Why did your Elders' Council attack Luo Qingtong? Ma Chenyi's voice was cold and dignified. His gaze swept over the members of the law enforcement team who were wailing on the ground and his expression instantly darkened. His expression was sullen. At this moment, the might of the Crown Prince of the Empire of Qin was fully displayed. Chapter 1070. They attacked Luo Qingtong? It was Luo Qingtong who attacked them, okay? That group of law enforcement team members were disabled by her. The group of people stared at Ma Chenyi and others, speechless for a long time. However, Mo Chenxian and others looked at the arrival of Grand Dean and Ma Chenyi and smiled coldly. It seems that everyone is here. Mo Chenxian chuckled and stood up. He looked at Ma Chenyi and said, Brother, you don't have to complain for Luo Qingtong. She's fine. It's the law enforcement team members who are in trouble. However, Grand Dean even gave the saint token to Luo Qingtong to play with. This protection is really rare. However, although you have a good relationship with Luo Qingtong, it's not right to cheat for her and find sorcery for her to attack you and Mo. What do you mean? Ma Chenyi came in a hurry. The member of the Qingwei group who came to report only said that something happened to Luo Qingtong, but did not say what happened. Ma Chenyi came in a hurry. Now it seemed that Ma Chenyi and others actually accused Luo Qingtong of using sorcery. Moreover, he had even plotted against him and the Grand Supreme Dean. Thinking of this, Ma Chenye's heart suddenly froze. No wonder he found out that Mo Chenxian was investigating Luo Qingtong. He originally wanted to remind the latter. But he did not expect that before he could do it, the other party attacked. Brother, you should understand what I mean. And Grand Dean, you should also understand. Mo Chenxian smiled sinisterly. He looked indifferent and looked at Ma Chenyi and Grand Dean calmly. Today, these two people, neither of them could escape. They would all be unlucky together with Luo Qingtong. It was a pity that Yi Luo was not here. Otherwise, he would also be dealt with. Mo Chenxian thought and smiled coldly. Grand Dean stood beside Luo Qingtong. After seeing that the latter was fine, he immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Then he heard Mo Chenxian say that he gave the saint token to Luo Qingtong to play with. In an instant, he almost could not breathe. That saint token was not given by him. He was wronged. The Grand Supreme Headmaster felt a wave of depression in his heart. He didn't realize that his focus had deviated. But Ma Chenye's face was cold. I don't know what you're talking about. Luo Qingtong used sorcery to cheat, how could this be possible? Knowing that Luo Qingtong was the princess of Chu, Mo Chenxian didn't believe it at all. Humph. I knew that you would not admit it. Fortunately, we were prepared. As Mo Chenxian spoke, he threw out the information he had found about Luo Qingtong. Of course, Luo Qingtong was the great Qin Empire's princess. He did not find out. At this moment, he raised his head slightly and looked at Ma Chenyi coldly. Here is all the information about Luo Qingtong's cultivation, strength, and talent. Luo Qingtong, can you explain how you could have the same ice soul seal as Yuan Mo and use the same soul skill as him during the gambling battle? You are just an ordinary martial artist and have never shown any soul seal talent. Besides, the soul seal formed by the cold air in Yuan Mo's body is different from other ice soul seals. Even if you really have an ice soul seal, it is absolutely impossible to use Yuan Mo's unique soul skill. Chapter 1071. Mo Chenxian sneered. He glanced at the girl who was sitting on the chair without any change in her expression. Luo Qingtong looked at him indifferently. It turned out that Yi Qianxian said that Mo Chenxian and the others were investigating her just to set up this trap of cheating and using witchcraft to deal with her. Luo Qingtong's lips curled up slightly. If so, Mo Chenxian and the others found the wrong way. As Luo Qingtong thought so, Su Xiaoxiao and the others beside her were also surprised. It turned out that Mo Chenxian and the others caught their boss with great fanfare through the Elders Guild because of this. The group of people suddenly felt speechless. When they thought of the false soul seal on their bodies, they felt more confident about this trial. If Mo Chenxian and the others wanted to slander their boss through this, they would end up badly. It was a slap in the face. As the group of people thought about it, their hearts, which had been in their throats, were immediately put back at ease. On the contrary, Ma Chenyi and the Grand Dean were nervous after hearing Mo Chenxuan's words. They didn't believe that Luo Qingtong used witchcraft. They were afraid that Mo Chenxian and the others were so well prepared that Luo Qingtong couldn't defend herself. Oh no! The two couldn't help but feel nervous. Looking at their expressions, Mo Chenxian burst into laughter. Luo Qingtong and the others couldn't defend themselves. But it wouldn't end here. He sneered, threw the documents in his hand to the ground, and then said, "You can't say anything, right? Because you helped Luo Qingtong to practice witchcraft. So that she could attack Yuan Ma." He said coldly to Luo Qingtong, "You hate Yuan Ma, so you didn't hesitate to destroy him. The collapse of the cold air in his body was the result of your witchcraft, right?" Mo Chenxian sneered. "After you disabled him, you said that he deserved it. Push the blame to him for being ungrateful in the past. In any case, Yuan Mo is already crippled. He can't defend himself. Even if I try to defend myself, no one will listen. Everyone will only think that he's trying to slander you. It's a pity that you were too vicious and exposed yourself in the end. Mo Qinxian said righteously. Luo Qingtong's lips twitched at his words. Mo Qinxian really had a talent for telling stories. She almost believed the story. Hearing Mo Qinxuan's words, the elders of the Academy of Saint Academy, who had just been humiliated by Luo Qingtong, suddenly shouted angrily as if they had caught something that could be used against them. Luo Qingtong, the evidence is here. What else do you have to say? They raised their hands and pointed at the documents that Mo Qinxian threw out. And the two of you, in order to protect Luo Qingtong, you actually found sorcery for her to cultivate. Especially you, Grand Dean. You helped Luo Qingtong to harm the students of the Saint Academy. What right do you have to be in charge of the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin? The group of elders of the Sacred Institute said righteously. In an instant, behind the Grand Dean, the group of mentors who followed the Grand Dean changed their expressions. Obviously, the elders of the Saint Academy wanted to take this opportunity to get rid of the Grand Dean. Chapter 1072. The group of people's faces suddenly became serious. The expressions of the Dean and the others behind the Grand Dean also turned solemn. Master. Grand Dean. The group of people looked at the Grand Dean nervously. The Grand Dean also frowned. The situation was not good. These people not only wanted to deal with Luo Qingtong, but also he and Ma Chenyi were involved. The Grand Dean had no doubt that the other party had already done something to him and Ma Chenyi's mansion. The Grand Dean thought so, and so did Ma Chenyi. Behind him, the group of people who followed him suddenly became restless. At this moment, Ma Chenyi and the Grand Dean seemed to have fallen into the trap set by Mo Qinxian and the elders of the Saint Academy. Su Deheng and Shen Chuyue sat there and looked at Luo Qingtong with a sneer. They didn't need to do anything at all. Mo Qinxian had already helped them to do it properly. Luo Qingtong would definitely not be able to get away this time. Even Ma Chenyi and the Grand Dean were in the same situation. Who asked them to shield and protect Luo Qingtong? Now they would be buried with her. The two of them laughed complacently. After the elders of the Saint Academy blamed Luo Qingtong, the Grand Dean, and Ma Chenyi, they immediately sent people to the place where they lived to search. Naturally, they searched a pile of letters and materials on behalf of them, looking for evil arts for Luo Qingtong to practice. Those things were thrown in front of Luo Qingtong, Ma Chenyi, and the Grand Dean. What else do you have to say? The elders of the Saint Academy asked. Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows and said, I have nothing to say. She usually only liked to fight. The Grand Dean and Ma Chenyi both frowned. Especially the Grand Dean, when he looked at Luo Qingtong, his eyebrows were tangled. He was almost like a fried dough twist. Hey! Do you have a way to get out of here? If you can't, I'll send you out. The Grand Dean frowned as he spoke to Luo Qingtong. The matter this time was really too big. It was obvious that Su Deheng wanted to harm Luo Qingtong and wanted to use Mo Qinxian to do it. The Grand Supreme Dean didn't care about the situation on his side. In any case, those people from the Elders Guild only wanted to seize his authority. But Luo Qingtong was different. If she really couldn't escape and something happened to her here, the Grand Supreme Dean didn't dare to imagine the consequences. No matter what, he had to make sure that she was fine. It's okay. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. Let them continue to play. Don't worry, I can turn the tables. As she spoke, she raised her eyes to look at Mo Qinxian, who was sitting with Su Deheng and the others, looking very smug. The latter was currently talking to Ma Chenyi. Brother, why are you so careless? Mo Qinxian looked at Ma Chenyi with a smile, and his words were full of pity and sarcasm. For a woman, you didn't hesitate to find sorcery for her to practice. As the crown prince of the Empire of Qin, your behavior is very inappropriate. It's okay that the Grand Supreme Dean is muddle-headed. Why can't you figure it out? As he spoke, he deliberately sighed heavily and said, if father knows this, he will be very disappointed. Brother, why do you have to do this? Ma Chunyi looked at Mo Chunxian coldly and didn't speak. On the contrary, Yu Qingwei stood out at once. Mo Chunxian, you deliberately set up the crown prince. She looked sullen. She had been watching from the side just now. Chapter 1073. Senior Sister Qingwei, you have to be responsible for your words. The evidence here is conclusive. How can you say that I framed them? Mo Chunxian sneered at her. He didn't take Yu Qingwei and others seriously at all. Even if they knew that he framed Ma Chunyi and others, so what? There were witnesses and evidence. Unless Luo Qingtong could turn the tables, Ma Chunyi and Grand Supreme Dean would not be able to defend themselves. Who asked them to defend Luo Qingtong so much? If they wanted to blame someone, they should blame Luo Qingtong. If she didn't give them a chance, how could they lay their hands on Ma Chunyi and Grand Supreme Dean? Mo Chunxian said to Mo Chunxian. The person behind him said, if you know what's good for you, leave Ma Chunyi quickly. Otherwise, when you get out of here, you will be in trouble with him. When he said this, the group of people behind Ma Chunyi suddenly looked at each other. The latter was furious. At this moment, Luo Qingtong's voice sounded in his mind. Don't worry about him. Just treat it as a monkey show. Let him jump around. The girl's voice was faint. She didn't say anything, but inexplicably gave people a feeling of wanting to believe her. The anger in Ma Chunyi's heart disappeared instantly. His eyes lit up slightly, and an idea suddenly flashed through his mind. Could it be that Luo Qingtong had a way to deal with Mo Chunxian and others? He thought so, and his heart was full of expectation. When he looked at Mo Chunxian again, he was almost like a clown. Many of the people behind Ma Chunyi were swayed by Mo Chunxuan's words. After swaying left and right for a while, many people stood out one after another. Your Highness, I'm sorry. Some people said as they stepped away from Ma Chunyi and walked to Mo Chunxian. Your Highness King Wu. Those people bowed to Mo Chunxian. Good. You follow me, and I won't treat you badly. Mo Chunxian looked at this scene and was very happy in his heart. Finally, one day, he could poach the people around Ma Chunyi. He wondered if Ma Chunyi would be heartbroken when he saw this scene. Mo Chunxian thought, and he was very proud. Seeing this scene, Grand Supreme Dean immediately said to the mentors behind him, it seems that I'm going to be in trouble this time. If you want to leave, hurry up. Otherwise, if you miss this opportunity, there won't be another one. When he said these words, those mentors who followed him looked at each other for a while. Finally, a few people stood out with their heads lowered. Dean, I'm sorry. After they left, they walked to Ma Chunyi's side to leave. After getting rid of the Grand Dean and Mo Chunyi, the elders of the Saint Academy, Mo Chunxian, and the others all focused on Luo Qingtong. It's Luo Yu. The Machin elders of Ma Chunyi sneered at her. They all looked very unfriendly, and their eyes on Luo Qingtong were like knives. This woman was so arrogant just now, and now she fell into their hands? A group of people said coldly, Luo Qingtong, you practice evil magic, and you use it to deal with your peers of Machin Academy. You can't be forgiven. We're going to destroy your cultivation, arrest you, and punish you severely. When they said this, the group of people's gazes became abnormally sinister and vicious. At this moment, Luo Qingtong's voice suddenly sounded. Chapter 1074. Luo Qingtong, who had been silent all this time, raised her eyebrows and stood up. She looked at the elders of the Sacred Academy who were about to attack. The show was over. It was her turn. Today, she would let them know what it meant to be too late to regret. You? Humph. The elders of the Sacred Academy looked at her and sneered. Luo Qingtong, don't think that you can buy time for someone to save you. Are you waiting for the chief instructor of the Sacred Academy? The group thought that they had seen through Luo Qingtong's plan. However, if he can save you, what about the people around you? The group sneered and threatened her. I advise you not to play any tricks. Otherwise, the people around you won't have a good ending. The group was unspeakably fearless. Even if the other party had the supreme holy token, they were not afraid. You are not qualified for me to play any tricks. Luo Qingtong snorted coldly. Only someone like Yi Qianxian who wanted to kill her was worthy of her careful escape. Just these people from the Council of Elders of the Holy Academy, they still wanted her to play tricks on them? They should see if they were qualified. How shameless. Luo Qingtong snorted disdainfully. You. As they spoke, they were ridiculed once again. The people from the Elder Council of the Sacred Academy flew into a rage. Just as they were about to take her down, the Grand Dean stood in front of Luo Qingtong with the rest of the instructors behind him. This girl is asking you a question. Did you not hear her? Are you deaf? The Grand Supreme Dean's face was filled with anger and displeasure. If she didn't use any sorcery, why did you touch her? Do you think we are dead? As he spoke, Mo Chenai led the only remaining supporters behind him and stood in front of the elders of the Academy of the Saint Academy. Elders, you'd better talk nicely. He flicked his sleeves coldly. Otherwise, it won't be a good thing if you hurt me. Ma Chenyi was still the crown prince, the heir to the throne of the Empire of Qin. If the elders of the Sacred Academy hurt him, it would be interesting. The group was aggrieved and didn't know whether to advance or retreat. The last elder of the Sacred Academy said angrily, "Okay. We will give you a chance. Luo Qingtong, let's see what you can prove." Idiot. The group of people looked very disdainful. So did Mo Chenxian and others. How could Luo Qingtong prove that she didn't practice sorcery? Ha! Yuan Ma was lying on the bed. She had used her opponent's unique soul skill to defeat him. Furthermore, according to the information he had gathered, she did not reveal any soul seal talent. In addition, the ice soul imprint in Yuan Mo's body was indeed very special. It was born from the cold energy in his body. Under such circumstances, they only believed in one thing. That was, Luo Qingtong had indeed used an evil technique to steal the soul seal attribute from Yuan Ma's body. No matter what she said, it was impossible to prove that she did not practice any sorcery. The group of people was extremely complacent. Luo Qingtong looked at them indifferently and said, "You haven't said what will you do if I really prove it? What will you do?" The group of elders of the Sacred Academy sneered, "If you can really prove that you don't practice sorcery, then we will kowtow to you and apologize. How many times have we slandered you? How many times have we slapped ourselves? How about that?" Chapter 1075. Did Luo Qingtong want to use her goading method in front of them? Wasn't it just some conditions? They would satisfy her. Let's see what other tricks she could play. The group of elders of the academy had been tricked by Luo Qingtong. They felt that Luo Qingtong was deliberately provoking them to answer this question so that they wouldn't dare to answer. Then she could justifiably stall for time and bring this topic to an end. Therefore, when the group of people spoke, they were very neat and tidy, without any sloppiness at all. Let's see what other excuses Luo Qingtong could come up with. While they were thinking, they heard Luo Qingtong say, "That's it?" Luo Qingtong looked at them with a sneer. "Just now when you swore that I practiced black magic, you wanted to destroy my cultivation and force the Grand Dean and the others to leave. If I prove that I didn't practice black magic, you have to treat the Grand Dean like you treated him before and get out of the Academy of the Empire of Qin. The Academy of Elders of the Academy will be completely disbanded. In addition, not only you, but all those who participated in slandering me will have to apologize to me, kneel down and kowtow. Do you dare to do it or not? Okay. The group of people was furious by Luo Qingtong's words. This woman said it deliberately, didn't she? Did she think that they would be paranoid and afraid because of what she said? They didn't dare to agree? It was ridiculous. The group of people agreed without hesitation, and then said in a gloomy voice, but if you can't prove it, then kneel down and destroy your cultivation. Save us the trouble. Okay. Luo Qingtong naturally agreed. The two sides were tit for tat. On the other side, Mo Chenxian also agreed to Luo Qingtong's conditions. In his opinion, whether Luo Qingtong really practiced black magic or not, it didn't matter. She couldn't find the evidence. Thinking of this, he suddenly sneered. However, just as he laughed, he heard Luo Qingtong say, "Come up and show them." You? Who? Mo Chenxian was stunned. He looked up and saw that Su Xiaoxiao and others stepped forward as Luo Qingtong spoke. Boom! They already knew how to break Mo Chenxuan's trap. Just now, he and Luo Qingtong were watching the show from the side. At this moment, he simply raised his hand. With a boom, the few of them unleashed Yu Wenma's unique soul skill that Luo Qingtong had taught them. In an instant, there were a few explosions in the air of the hall. What? Everyone stared at this scene with their mouths agape. Even the Grand Principal and Ma Chenyi, who already knew beforehand that Luo Qingtong had a way to turn the tables, were shocked and stunned. Holy shit! Were these people trying to defy the heavens? The Grand Principal and others stared at Su Xiaoxiao and others with their eyes wide open. They didn't know about the others, but Su Xiaoxiao, Yuan Hu, Sima Ju, Ling Tianhan and the others couldn't have the ice attribute soul seal. Then how did they release the attack with the ice aura? Don't talk about using black magic. There were so many people, how many people's soul seal attributes would they need to rob? And these people's attribute strength was exactly the same. There was no difference. More importantly, the cold aura emitted by these people was exactly the same as Yu Wenma's. The latter's attribute soul seal was so special that Luo Qingtong could just rob it. Where could they find a few people who were exactly the same for Su Xiaoxiao to rob? Chapter 1076. The group of people was horrified in an instant. They looked at Su Xiaoxiao and the others in horror, with a look of disbelief as if they had seen a ghost. The people of the Elders Association of the Sacred Academy were even more shocked and speechless. Not to mention Mo Chenxian. He finally knew why Luo Qingtong said that she could prove that she didn't practice evil arts. The aura in Su Xiaoxiao and the others' bodies was the proof. They didn't practice evil arts, but they could have the same cold power as Yu Wenma and use the latter's unique soul skill. In this case, Luo Qingtong was immediately cleared of suspicion. Mo Chenxian and the people of the Elders Association of the Sacred Academy almost popped their eyes out. Especially Mo Chenxian, his words just now were so complacent. This was how shocking and unbelievable it was. How was this possible? He looked at the attacks released by Su Xiaoxiao and the others in disbelief and almost staggered back and fell to the ground. Bang! As he retreated, he bumped into someone behind him and almost fell to the ground. And that person didn't react, just looked at Su Xiaoxiao and the others in front of him in shock. Luo Qingtong and the others turned the tables. In such an impossible situation, they turned the tables. Everyone stared with their eyes wide open. Mo Chenxian staggered to stand firm, and finally rushed to Su Xiaoxiao and hissed, "Impossible. How could you release Yuan Ma's unique soul skill and cold power? You must have used some means. Did he use some kind of special treasure? His figure and voice were extremely disheveled. Mo Qinxian couldn't accept his failure. He was about to trample Ma Chenyi to the bottom of the valley. And the Grand Dean would also lose the control of the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin. Luo Qingtong would be in big trouble. In such a case, how could he lose? It was one thing for Luo Qingtong to be able to use Yuan Ma's unique soul skill, but how could Su Xiaoxiao and the others be able to use it as well? Luo Qingtong's method of asking Su Xiaoxiao and the others to prove themselves was even more inexplicable than her choosing someone on the spot and copying their soul skills. Everyone present could see it clearly. The special treasure that Mo Qinxian mentioned was impossible. Let's not talk about how such a special treasure was able to replicate Yuan Ma's unique soul imprint power. How could Su Xiaoxiao and the others have so many special treasures? It would be amazing to have even one. That was a treasure, not some cabbage that could be found on the roadside. And Luo Qingtong's next words confirmed their thoughts. Of course, I have my own methods. If you think that this is not enough proof, I don't mind if you randomly choose another person and let them have the same cold power. Luo Qingtong's words were said casually, but everyone present was shocked. Luo Qingtong could let people have the power of the cold soul imprint at will. Such a shocking method, but she said it so casually. This was the power of the soul imprint. She could let people have it casually. Didn't that mean that as long as Luo Qingtong was willing, she could let anyone in the world become a soul personage? Even if the power of this soul personage could be controlled by her, but it was still a soul personage. My God! Everyone was shocked to the extreme. Chapter 1077. It's her. It must be her. If this means did not come from her, then it must be from Blackfield. But for so many years, this means had never been heard of. If it came from Blackfield, it was impossible that they had not heard of it at all. So this power must come from the evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Oh my God! Thinking of that legendary reckless young man, that evil young man who created the fastest rising legend, but who was so mysterious that no one knew, everyone was panting heavily in their hearts. No one did not want to have such a powerful means. But thinking of the black field and the underworld venerable behind her, in an instant, the fire in everyone's heart seemed to be poured by a basin of cold water, and they did not have any other thoughts. And Luo Qingtong, who could be specially favored by the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, made them envious. She was really lucky. She actually had such a relationship with the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, and the latter helped her in various ways. While the others were envious, Mo Qinxian and the people of the Holy Academy's Elders Guild were so embarrassed that they could not even stand steadily. Since Luo Qingtong could say such words, it meant that she really had such confidence. So, they had racked their brains, but in fact, they had made a mistake. Luo Qingtong did not practice any sorcery at all, but got a kind of heaven-defying means, which could copy and use the power of other people's soul seals. Since it was not sorcery, they had no reason to judge Luo Qingtong at all. Those accusations and righteous words against Luo Qingtong, the Grand Dean, and Ma Chenyi just now looked extremely ridiculous. Just how confident were they before this? How badly their faces would be slapped. Thinking of the words they had just accused the Grand Dean and Ma Chenyi, the Elders Guild of the Holy Academy and Mo Qinxian felt a burning pain in their faces. No wonder Luo Qingtong did not say a word just now. This woman was simply laughing at them. To treat their performance as an act. Thinking about how they had become clowns for no reason, trying their best to deal with Luo Qingtong, Grand Dean, Mo Chenyi and the rest, but they were all treated as jokes. The elders of the Sacred Academy and Mo Qinxuan's eyes turned black. Was there anything more embarrassing than this? Su Deheng and Shenqiuyue, who had been watching the development of the situation and waiting for Luo Qingtong and the others to be beaten to the bottom of the mud, also stood up abruptly with an unsightly expression and disbelief. Luo Qingtong actually has such means? Shen Chuyue said in disbelief. It's not her, it must be that evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Su Deheng's expression was not much better than hers. The two of them looked at the beautiful girl who was surrounded by the crowd, and their hearts were filled with indescribable depression and hatred. Who would have thought that Luo Qingtong could turn the situation around like this? Originally, Su Deheng was 100% sure that Luo Qingtong must have practiced the evil arts to be able to make Yu Wenma become like this. All her performances were all in line with the conditions of practicing the evil arts. But who would have thought that Luo Qingtong had obtained the nature-defying means from evil Dr. Ghost Eye? It was through that means that Yu Wenma was defeated. And it also made him the laughingstock of the Empire of Qin for having eyes but failing to see. Thinking of this, Su Deheng was so angry that his heart ached. His gaze towards Luo Qingtong was filled with incomparable hatred. Chapter 1078. Elders, do you still remember what you said just now? I have proved my innocence. I didn't practice any sorcery. So, shouldn't you fulfill your promise? Luo Qingtong sneered and said, please kneel down and apologize. By the way, don't stop the slapping. I'll ask someone to count it for you. How long has it been since you called me here? 1 slap for every breath. I'll wait. By the way, Your Highness King Wu. Luo Qingtong looked at Mo Chenxian and the elders of the Saint Academy with a smile. Their faces suddenly changed. The latter and the others felt extremely humiliated. But in this situation, they had to kneel down. The Grand Dean, Ma Chenyi, and the others were watching. The elders of the Saint Academy and Mo Chenxian had humiliated them before. Now they were going to pay back all the humiliation. Elders, kneel down. The Grand Dean snorted coldly. They were all mentors of the Saint Academy. In fact, he didn't want to make things so ugly. But who asked the elders of the Saint Academy to be so aggressive? Thinking that if Luo Qingtong hadn't found a way to turn the situation around, he would have been slandered and driven out of the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin. He snorted coldly. The evils they brought on themselves were the hardest to bear. These people had made the promise themselves, so they had to eat it themselves. The faces of the elders of the Sacred Academy were ashen. Under the gaze of the Grand Dean and the mentors, they slapped themselves in the face. In the loud slapping sound, Ma Chenyi and the people of the Guiyuan group looked at Mo Chenxian coldly and said, brother, do you want to do it yourself? Or I'll ask someone to help you. Mo Chenxuan's face darkened. He pinched his palms hard and said, brother, I'm King Wu of the Empire of Qin. You humiliated me in front of outsiders. Aren't you afraid that father will blame you? He tried to escape punishment. No matter how ridiculous the bet with Luo Qingtong was, it was Mo Chenxuan's personal behavior after all. Worst comes to worst, I'll just take it that he's crazy. But this time, if he had to kneel and apologize to Luo Qingtong and then slap himself in the face, it would be extremely damaging to the reputation of the imperial family of the Empire of Qin. Mo Chenxian tried to persuade Ma Chenyi to give up the punishment. However, he had been too ruthless in the past. He was about to dethrone the crown prince of Ma Chenyi. How could he still talk to him about the dignity of the royal family of the Empire of Qin? Even if Ma Chenyi had to risk being punished by the emperor of the Empire of Qin, he would never let Mo Chenxian escape punishment. What was more, Mo Chenxian put a pile of evidence in his mansion to prove that he had something to do with Luo Qingtong's practice of witchcraft. Just based on these, Ma Chenyi was enough to deal with Mo Chenxian. Those who supported the latter in the royal family of the Empire of Qin could not even let out a fart. I'm teaching my brother how to be a man. What's more, the dignity of the royal family of the Empire of Qin doesn't need to be defended by a villain who framed his brother and plotted to dethrone the crown prince of the Empire of Qin. Ma Chunyi looked at Mo Chenxian with a cold face. Don't think that you can fool me with those words. Mo Chenxian, just tell me whether you want to hit me or not. No. I'll ask someone to hit me for you. Slap. 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 After Ma Chunyi finished speaking, Mo Chenxian had already clenched his teeth and slapped himself hard. His heart was full of resentment. Ma Chunyi, don't think that you'll be fine after escaping this time. When I succeed, I'll kill you. And Luo Qingtong. Chapter 1079. Mo Chenxuan's face was extremely ferocious, and he kept slapping himself. As for the people from the Qing Wei group, they were already dumbfounded. Oh my God! They watched Luo Qingtong turn the tables. In just an instant, she managed to reverse the situation that was about to kill her, as well as the crown prince and the grand principal. When they heard that Mo Chenxian accused Luo Qingtong of using sorcery, they knew that Luo Qingtong couldn't get over it. To put it bluntly, even if Luo Qingtong really didn't practice sorcery, so what? She and Yuan Mo's bet was suspicious, and with Mo Chenxuan's investigation, she didn't have the talent of Soul Seal. Then, Luo Qingtong couldn't defend herself. Just look at how the Dean of the Grand Hall and the Crown Prince were implicated. But who knew that Luo Qingtong would clear herself of suspicion in the next instant? This method was simply amazing. Yu Qingwei just wanted to protect Ma Chunyi desperately, but she didn't expect that Luo Qingtong resolved the crisis so easily. Not only that, she also let the elders of the Saint Academy and Mo Chenxian suffer the consequences of their own actions. Seeing that their faces were almost swollen, Yu Qingwei kneeled and apologized. Yu Qingwei's usually calm and elegant eyes widened as she kneeled and apologized. Fortunately, you listened to me and reconciled with them. After holding it in for a long time, she finally squeezed out such a sentence from her mouth. Hearing this, the members of the Qing Wei group shuddered. They felt that their own group leader was really too amazing. If senior sister Qingwei didn't come back to reconcile with Luo Qingtong, but to fight with them to the end, then they would probably end up like the elders of the Saint Academy and Mo Chenxian. Thinking of this, the people of Qing Wei group suddenly shuddered again. Oh my God, it was too scary. Fortunately. The group of people rejoiced. And those who originally thought that the Dean of the Grand Hall and Ma Chunyi had lost power and defected, looked at the scene in front of them, and their hearts were full of despair and regret. If they knew that the Dean of the Grand Hall, Crown Prince, was fine, they wouldn't have been so eager to switch sides. Wouldn't it be better to wait until things were settled? However, they thought that the sooner they switched sides, the more impressions they would have, so they directly took sides after Mo Chenxian spoke. Now it was too late for regrets. They were brought here by Ma Chunyi and the Grand Hall, almost all of the latter's confidants. So they decided to betray and show their loyalty to Ma Chunxian. Now that he hadn't shown his loyalty, his path had been completely cut off. This was especially true for those teachers who had betrayed the Grand Principal. They couldn't even cry. The elders of the Saint Academy and Crown Prince made the trial results of the Grand Hall were false. Chapter 1080. Luo Qingtong didn't stay too long in the Elders' Guild. After watching Mo Chenxian and the elders of the Saint Academy slap each other for a while, she left the follow-up of the matter to Mo Chenai and the Grand Dean. She believed that the two of them must know what to do best for them. In order to frame the Grand Dean and Ma Chunyi, Mo Chenxian and the Elders' Guild of the Saint Academy dragged them into the water. They used a lot of forces and connections to do something in their mansions. After Ma Chunyi and the Grand Dean escaped this time, they immediately organized people to investigate this matter. They found out all the evidence that Mo Chenxian and the Elders' Guild of the Saint Academy had slandered them. By the way, they also destroyed all their forces and connections. Those that should be dealt with were dealt with, and those that should be destroyed were destroyed. For a time, Mo Qinshuan's forces were severely reduced and he suffered a great loss. His forces and connections were not as good as those of Ma Qinyi. Now he was even more miserable after being messed with like this. He was so angry that he flew into a rage and vomited blood continuously. If it weren't for the last belief that the dragon qi in his body was stronger than that of Ma Qinyi and that he could definitely defeat him in the future and climb to the top, Mo Qinshian would have been completely disheartened and unable to recover from the setback. With all kinds of dark thoughts in his mind, Mo Qinshuan's face became colder and more malicious. And the Elders Guild of the Saint Academy were all deprived of their status as elders and mentors and expelled from the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin under the evidence presented by the Grand Dean. It was not over. Because they were suspected of murdering the Crown Prince and distorting the truth, the Elders Guild of the Saint Academy were arrested by the elite troops sent by the royal family of the Empire of Qin as soon as they left the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin. This group of people would be severely punished. For a time, all kinds of collapse and crying sounds were heard. At this time, the Elders Guild of the Saint Academy realized what they had done. They couldn't say how regretful they were. But at this time, there was no medicine for regret. Luo Qingtong, on the other hand, didn't care about these things. She handed these matters over to the Grand Principal and Ma Qinyi to deal with, and didn't care about it anymore. She was currently preparing to give Ma Qinyi the reverse luck seizing technique. A month's time was almost up, and Ma Qinyi's dragon energy was almost fully nourished. When the time limit was up, Luo Qingtong would directly help him reverse the luck seizing technique. At that time, all the dragon qi that Mo Qinshian had absorbed from him over the years would be returned. Before that, Luo Qingtong still had some things to do. Here, this is for you. Luo Qingtong gave Ma Qinyi the information about Mo Qinshian that Yi Qianren had checked for her before. The latter took it and glanced at it. His eyes immediately widened. This. Ma Qinyi was shocked. Where did you get this information? It recorded all the things that Mo Qinshian had done in recent years, as well as the connections and forces of all parties. Both in the open and in the dark, it had everything. Even some of the secrets of the royal family were involved, and even Ma Qinyi didn't know about it. Ma Qinyi was shocked by the details of this information. Then he thought of the relationship between Luo Qingtong and the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, and quickly felt relieved. Did the evil Dr. Ghost Eye give this to you? With that person's status in the black field and the manpower he could use, he could indeed find these things. Luo Qingtong smiled but didn't say anything. Chapter 1081. He looked at a page in the stack of documents in shock. This. How dare Mo Qinshian lay his hands on my father? Ma Qinyi looked at the information that Mo Qinshian had bewitched the emperor of the Empire of Qin. No wonder his father's attitude towards him had been getting colder and colder over the years. Ma Qinyi had thought that his father was too disappointed in him because he could not make a breakthrough in his cultivation. Coupled with Mo Qinshuan's strong rise, this was the reason. But now it seemed that all this was probably because Mo Qinshian had bewitched the emperor of the Empire of Qin. According to the information, Mo Qinshian had bewitched the emperor of the Empire of Qin by increasing the dosage little by little. Therefore, the effect was not obvious at the beginning. Only when the other party made important decisions, he would be confused and unconsciously lean towards Mo Qinshian. Ma Qinyi thought that over the years, many things and power in his hands had been handed over to Mo Qinshian bit by bit. The latter had the upper hand in front of him and was unscrupulously arrogant in front of him. And he could only retreat because his cultivation had not been able to make a breakthrough and the dragon qi in his body was constantly decreasing. It was said that he had been silent for the past few years, and many ministers and forces who followed him were extremely disappointed because of this. But who would have thought that Ma Qinyi did not want to be silent at all? But what could he do when his father was not willing to let him do things? Mo Chinchuan's strength and power improved step by step, and he had all the advantages. So in a few years, he had completely caught up with him, who had been the crown prince for more than 10 years. Ma Chenyi had also been disheartened by his father's favoritism. But now it seemed that all this was because Mo Chenxian had bewitched the emperor. And when this drug was taken for a certain time and amount, the person would completely lose his mind and become a puppet of the drug maker. Bastard! How dare he? Ma Chenyi looked at the records in his hands and was furious. At this moment, the blue veins on the forehead of such a gentle and elegant person were all exposed. Ma Chenyi clenched his fists tightly. He had been the crown prince since he was a child and was doted on by the sage emperor of the Empire of Qin. The relationship between father and son was very good. During the years when Mo Chenxian rose to power, his father became more and more estranged from him. It was not that Ma Chenyi was not sad. Now that he knew that it was all Mo Chenchuan's doing, he wanted to eat him alive. However, he soon had a new question in his heart. Father is powerful, and there are countless masters in the palace. He also has a saint to look after him. Mo Chenxian drugged him. It's too dangerous. Why didn't he drug me? Ma Chenyi was, after all, the heir to the throne of the Empire of Qin. His meticulousness was incomparable to that of an ordinary person. After a moment of excitement, he immediately realized that there was something illogical about this. Anyway, from Mo Chenchuan's point of view, it was much safer and more convenient to attack him than to attack his father. As long as he got rid of him and controlled him, who else in the royal family of the Empire of Qin would be his match? At that time, even if imperial father didn't want to make him the crown prince, it would be impossible. Why did he use such a dangerous and easily discovered method? Because the purpose of the person behind him is your father. Luo Qingtong looked indifferent. She knew that the person behind Mo Chenxian was the heavenly doctor. Chapter 1082. She first used Mo Chenxian to deal with Ma Chenyi. After Mo Chenxian succeeded, she would directly abolish Mo Chenxian through the emperor of the Empire of Qin that she had already controlled. At that time, the Empire of Qin would be under her control. She would be the queen behind the scenes. As for Mo Chenxian, he was just a tool she chose. It was ridiculous that he didn't know it and thought that he was the one who benefited. The person behind the scenes? Hearing Luo Qingtong's words, Ma Chenyi was shocked. However, he soon realized what was going on. Yes, Mo Chenchuan's rise was too strange, and the loss of the dragon qi in his body was also very strange. In addition, now that he had the information of the bewitching drug, Ma Chenyi had already believed Luo Qingtong's words. There must be someone behind Mo Chenxian. And the purpose of the other party was the throne of the Empire of Qin. Mo Chenxian was just a pawn and a tool of the other party. Thinking of this, Ma Chenyi's face suddenly became very serious. Yes. The person behind the scenes. Luo Qingtong's face was indifferent. Do you remember what happened before the Great Chu? Luo Qingtong said, at that time, Prince Ning attacked Empress Dowager Yan Shi. There was another person behind him. Ma Chenyi paid attention to Luo Qingtong because of the royal family of the Great Chu. How could he not know about the royal family of the Great Chu? Now hearing Luo Qingtong's words, he immediately reacted. You mean, the person behind Mo Chenxian and the person behind Prince Ning of the Great Chu are the same person? He asked. Yes. You should have heard of her name, Heavenly Doctor. Luo Qingtong looked at Ma Chenyi and said, I'll give you the information, together with the antidote of the bewitching drug. You can take it to the Emperor of the Empire of Qin. In addition, I can tell you that the Heavenly Doctor has an inseparable relationship with the royal family of the Great Yong. You can check it in this direction. I'm also looking forward to the real identity of this Heavenly Doctor. The smile on Luo Qingtong's lips rose slightly. In the slight curve, there was a bit of evil, a bit of frivolity, and a bit of cunning. She had received the news from Yen and the others. The bloodline power of this generation of the royal family of the Great Yong was almost all. Only the emperor of the Great Yong dynasty's royal family could not be compared with the royal family of the other royal dynasties. And Luo's Yongs. And the royal family of the emperor of the Great Yong dynasty, with her with the emperor with her with the emperor, had used. So. But Luo Qingtong already knew what was going on. If she hadn't guessed wrongly, it wasn't that the bloodline power of those royal family members didn't exist, but it had all been absorbed by Feng Yuan, right? That heavenly doctor and Feng Yuan definitely had a great relationship. Maybe it was her herself. Luo Qingtong was looking forward to the investigation of this matter by the royal family of the Empire of Qin. At that time, when Feng Yuan was dragged out, the scene would definitely be very beautiful. Her plot to seize the throne of the Empire of Qin failed, and she was dealt with. Luo Qingtong felt that if she heard this news, she would have to eat 2 more bowls of rice. With the temperament of the Emperor of the Empire of Qin, if he knew that Feng Yuan was involved with the person who plotted to kill him, even if the Great Yong royal family protected Feng Yuan, she would still be in big trouble. Not to mention the price that the Great Yong royal family would have to pay. Chapter 1083. Ma Chunyi took the document given by Luo Qingtong and went back. According to the list given in the document, he caught all the spies arranged by Mo Chenxian in the imperial palace of the Empire of Qin. Ma Chunyi knew that Mo Chenxian couldn't turn the tables this time, so he didn't hide anything when he took action. In fact, he couldn't hide it. Most of the spies arranged by Mo Chenxian were close to the emperor of the Empire of Qin. Thinking about it, only these people could make the emperor of the Empire of Qin fall into the trap without any warning. And the dosage of the drug was so little that no one could detect it. If it weren't for the document given to him by Luo Qingtong, Ma Chunyi wouldn't have believed the consequences. He was afraid that when they came to their senses, the whole imperial palace of the Empire of Qin would have changed hands. According to the document given by Luo Qingtong, the emperor of the Empire of Qin had been taking the drug for nearly 5 years. After a few more months, he would completely lose his mind and become a dog under the feet of the other party. It was ridiculous that Mo Chenxian thought that the other party did all these for him, but he didn't know that the other party almost controlled the whole imperial palace of the Empire of Qin with his help. Once the emperor of the Empire of Qin was controlled by the other party, the imperial palace of the Empire of Qin would suffer a disaster. And the imperial palace of the Empire of Qin would completely change hands and be controlled by the other party. How terrible was this? Ma Chunyi was frightened as he caught all the spies and tied them up in front of the emperor of the Empire of Qin. The emperor of Qin was furious because of Ma Chunyi's unscrupulous actions and thought that he was trying to usurp the throne. However, before he could do anything, Ma Chunyi had already appeared in front of him with a group of people. Ma Chunyi told him everything and put the detailed information in front of the emperor of the Empire of Qin. "Father, these are the results of my investigation. Please have a look. In addition, I've also checked all these people. They are all under the influence of the drug and have completely lost their minds and been controlled by the other party. That's why they drugged you." The emperor of the Empire of Qin was so strict that ordinary people couldn't get close to him. As for the people serving him, they were almost all his trusted aides and men of sacrifice. Under such circumstances, the other party wanted to poison him without him knowing it. Therefore, he could only make a move on his trusted aides and turn them into puppets first. When Mo Chenxian caught them, he had already used the method taught by Luo Qingtong to check them. These people were all under the influence of the drug. And they couldn't be saved. Even if they were saved by force, they would become complete idiots. The emperor of the Empire of Qin looked at the information and evidence in front of him furiously. This was especially so when the guards of the imperial palace found bags of medicine that had been used to drug the great Qin sage emperor. The fury on his face reached its peak. Bang! He flicked his sleeves heavily and the energy in his body exploded. In an instant, those who were caught and kneeling on the ground without any change in their expressions and didn't know fear were all shattered into pieces. He shouted angrily in the rain of broken bodies and blood. Send my order immediately to the Wu imperial mansion. Catch that unfilial son and bring him to me. Also, take away his title of King Wu from now on. Lock him up. Chapter 1084. The Saint Emperor of the Empire of Qin was furious to the extreme. At the same time, Mo Chenxian didn't know what had happened in Lord Wu's mansion. Because of the matter with Luo Qingtong, he had suffered extremely heavy losses. He had lost more than half of his forces and connections. But fortunately, he still had some trump cards in his hand that had not been exposed. And his strength was also very strong, which could finally solve some of his urgent needs. And his biggest trump card was the Saint Emperor of the Empire of Qin in the Imperial Palace of the Empire of Qin. Ma Chenyi, you destroyed my forces and connections. Do you really think I can't deal with you in this way? And you, Luo Qingtong. Bitch, I'll let you know my power sooner or later. Hiss. Mo Chenxian swore and pulled the wound on his face. That day at the elders' conference, he slapped himself nearly 1,000 times. Even if he was strong, his handsome and gloomy face was swollen like a pig's head. He had not fully recovered after 2 days of recuperation in the mansion. He was so angry that he couldn't maintain his usual coldness and shrewdness at all. Not to mention that he had suffered such heavy losses in the past few days. Just as he secretly gritted his teeth and prepared to ask the Saint Emperor of the Empire of Qin to give Ma Chenyi a difficult task to teach him a lesson and destroy some of his forces and connections, the guard outside suddenly ran in. No! Something bad happened. Your Highness. The guard ran to Mo Chenxian, out of breath. His face was full of horror. Before he could speak, Mo Chenxian, who was already in a bad mood, directly raised his foot and kicked him out with a bang. How dare you? Who allowed you to yell in front of me? Mo Chenxuan's face was extremely cold. He thought that these guards didn't have any respect for him because they saw that his forces were greatly damaged. The guard was kicked to the ground and couldn't speak for a long time. Before Mo Chenxian asked his men to drag him out, there was a sudden cry outside. Seal them all. Following this angry shout, a group of people instantly swept in from the outside door like a whirlwind. Everywhere he passed, there was chaos and chaos. The people of the martial imperial manor immediately went into hiding, not daring to resist. Because those people were wearing the uniform of the personal guards of the Emperor of the Empire of Qin. The fact that they had moved out meant that they were acting on the Sage Emperor's orders. How dare you? What's wrong with you guys? How dare you trespass into my martial imperial manor? Hearing the sound in the room, Mo Chenxian immediately flew out of his main courtyard. When he saw the group of personal guards barging around outside, he immediately shouted angrily. He never thought that the fact that he had drugged the Sage Emperor had been exposed. In his view, if the other party was unable to notice it even after 5 years, there was no way the other party would be able to do so now. Moreover, as more and more people gathered around the Saint Emperor, it would be even easier for him to hide the fact that he had drugged the Saint Emperor. That heavenly doctor's methods were extraordinary. In the past, she was still trembling with fear. Now, it seemed that no one could see through the medicine she gave. So it was definitely not the Sage Emperor who wanted to deal with him. Mo Chenxian wondered if Ma Chenyi had said something in front of the Emperor, which made the Emperor so angry that the Emperor came to arrest him. Thinking of how he had framed Ma Chenyi for finding sorcery for Luo Qingtong, Mo Chenchuan's face turned cold. Chapter 1085. He even dared to bring this up in front of the emperor. However, he did not expect that the emperor would side with him. As long as he was willing, not only would he not be able to get justice, he would also be severely reprimanded by the emperor. He would like to see how unbelievable the emperor would be then. Thinking of this, Mo Chenxian sneered and walked towards the guards, ready to reprimand them. However, before he could get close, the leader of the imperial guards, an expert of the sage state, glanced at him indifferently and waved his hand. "Take him down." Bang! In an instant, Mo Chenxian was pressed to the ground by a group of bodyguards. His head smashed hard on the bluestone tiles below, making a dull thud. Mo Chenchuan's body was stepped on, and he was instantly stunned. "How dare you? I'm King Wu of the Empire of Qin. How dare you treat me like this? Let me go." He struggled and shouted angrily. These people must have been instructed by Ma Chenyi to deal with him. What a bastard! When he was in front of the emperor, he would definitely reprimand them. However, as soon as he spoke, the words of the Imperial Guard's commander made his mind go blank. King Wu of the Empire of Qin? Ha! The Imperial Guard's commander looked at him with disdain. "I'm afraid you won't have the chance in this lifetime. Mo Chenxian, you colluded with others to assassinate the emperor. The emperor has ordered to arrest you and take away the position of King Wu. If you want to scold us for being presumptuous, you can continue to do so later. Because we will be even more presumptuous in the future." Ha! The Imperial Guard's commander suddenly burst into laughter. He waved his hand, and a group of people dragged Mo Chenxian like a dead dog. These Imperial Guards served the emperor, and they all heard the emperor's order today. Mo Chenxian would never have the chance to turn the tables. Naturally, they would not be polite to him. Moreover, everyone in the Empire of Qin knew that Mo Chenxian and Ma Chenyi were not on good terms. Now that King Wu had been deposed, the heir to the throne of the Empire of Qin was the crown prince. Under such circumstances, they would naturally try their best to trample on Ma Chenyi and the Saint Emperor. Mo Chenxian was dragged along by these imperial guards, and his heart was numb to the extreme. What's going on? How did things turn out like this? His face was filled with anger and disbelief. Shouldn't Ma Chenyi go to the Empire of Qin's sage emperor to complain? Then, he would rush over and use the effect of the bewitching drug to make his imperial father favor him and punish Ma Chenyi? How did he end up losing the title of martial king? And what was the meaning of colluding with others to harm the sage emperor? Could it be that the things she had done to imperial father had been exposed? Impossible. Mo Chenxian thought and shook his head hard. That bewitching drug was not an ordinary drug. It was colorless and odorless, but it was extremely effective. He only used a little bit at a time, so it was impossible to be discovered. Even if they wanted to find out, they wouldn't have waited until now. But, what if it was this? Mo Chenxian thought and his heart trembled. When he thought about the consequences of murdering the sage emperor, his legs went weak. Not to mention the fact that the imperial guards were dragging him around like a dog. Even if he had to stand up, he wouldn't be able to walk. Mo Chenchuan's confidence came from his control over the sage emperor and the dragon energy in his body. Now, although he had the dragon energy in his body, once the news of murdering the sage emperor came out, how could he still have the chance to become the heir to the throne? It was almost a dead end. Chapter 1086. When Mo Chenxian was captured, a group of people arrived at the holy capital of the Empire of Qin. Is this the holy capital of the Empire of Qin? It doesn't look as prosperous as our subordinate cities. The group of people entered the city. A man with an aquiline nose who was at the front said coldly. His words were full of disdain and arrogance. Ah! Elder Xia must be joking. The holy capital of the Empire of Qin is only the capital city of the Empire of Qin's holy dynasty. The Empire of Qin's holy dynasty occupies less than a quarter of the eastern domain in the true Spill continent. How can its capital city be compared with our celestial palace's subordinate cities? It should be compared with the Black Field's main city, the 3 islands and 7 lands of the southern domain, the wild city of the western wilderness, and the Sea Emperor's dragon court of the northern domain. This is the sacred capital of the great Qin Empire. It is already an honor for Elder to be able to set foot here. The people around Elder Xia all agreed one after another. His words were full of flattery. Ah! Elder Xia was in a very good mood when he heard this. He looked at the people around him with admiration and laughed heartily as he walked forward. Let's go. Let's go find Deacon Shen. We need her to take us to the western wilderness this time. We just came out of the hidden world, so there won't be any problems. The group of people immediately walked towards the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin. Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin, Seoul Institute Master's Residence. Su Deheng and Shen Chuyue were sitting beside Su Jinyue's bed with a gloomy face. The human-faced ghost sores on the latter's body had just broken out. She was screaming and rolling on the ground crazily, tearing her hair and scratching her body. Her appearance was miserable and painful. Su Deheng and Shen Chuyue felt sorry for her. They couldn't wait to kill Luo Qingtong in order to alleviate his daughter's pain. That little bitch. Shen Chuyue's face was extremely cold. She originally thought that Luo Qingtong would definitely suffer at the elders' assembly, but she didn't expect that she would use such a heaven-defying method to turn the situation around. Not only that, but Mo Chenxian and the people of the Elders Guild were also in big trouble. As a result, they didn't have a single reliable helper. Fortunately, she had just received a message from the sect. Elder Xia and the others were about to arrive. Once she begged the other party to speak to Blackfield and let Luo Qingtong cure her daughter's illness, she would definitely make that Luo Qingtong suffer greatly. She didn't care who caused these human-faced ghost sores on her daughter's body. She would put it all on Luo Qingtong's account. Didn't that evil Dr. Gui Tong think highly of her? If he crippled her and let her experience more pain than Jinue, the evil Dr. Ghost I would also be in great pain, right? Humph. Shen Chuyue's face turned cold as she laughed. The noble and graceful face of a noblewoman was extremely cold and stern at this moment. At this moment, there was a noise outside the courtyard. Deacon Shen. Seeing a group of people appear in the courtyard, Shen Chuyue and Su Deheng hurriedly got up, opened the door and walked out. Elder Xia, you are here. Shen Chuyue greeted him excitedly. Su Deheng also hurriedly saluted him. Elder Xia's aura was extremely tyrannical. Su Deheng was already an expert who was close to surpassing the Sage Realm, but in front of Elder Xia, he couldn't help but feel suffocated. This was the shock caused by the pressure of the expert. Before Su Deheng, only the transcendence of the Empire of Qin's holy dynasty gave him this kind of feeling. Chapter 1087. Su Deheng only knew that the hidden world was different from the rest of the true Spill continent. The sects there were extremely powerful. But he didn't think that they would be strong to such a degree. Celestial Palace could casually send out an outer court elder, and they were all at the Transcendent Saint realm. Then, what kind of strength did the inner court deacons and elders have? There was no need to mention the total faction masters. And Celestial Palace wasn't even the strongest sect in the hidden world. No wonder there was a saying among those who knew of the hidden world's existence. If one wasn't a saint, they couldn't enter the hidden world. Unless it was a grand annual selection, no one below the saint realm had the qualifications to enter the hidden world. They didn't even know where the entrance was. And in the entire true Spill continent, how many people could enter the saint realm? Su Deheng himself had been stuck between the Sage Realm and beyond the Sage Realm. He had been unable to break through the barrier for a long time. The elder Xia arrogantly nodded. His eyes swept over Su Deheng, completely ignoring him. To the sects of the hidden world, the Saint Realm powerhouses of the true Spill continent weren't worth their attention. The genius disciples of their sects were far stronger than this. Weak. He was too weak. If this person wasn't Shenshuyue's husband, and if Shenshuyue wasn't the great elder of the outer court, he wouldn't even bother looking at him. Elder Xia. After the elder Xia arrived, Shenshuyue immediately spoke of her request. Elder Xia, I only have one daughter. Please help me. In the future, I will definitely repay you. Shenshuyue wiped her tears. Evil Dr. Ghost Pupil? What kind of powerful alchemist could there be in the true Spill continent? The elder Xia coldly snorted, his face full of disdain. He raised his hand and pointed to a disciple beside him, saying, Lu Tong, you go and treat her. Yes. The disciple named Lu Tong nodded and directly pushed open the door. He walked in front of Su Jinyue and began to treat her. However, when he touched Su Jinyue, all the human-faced ghost sores on her body seemed to be awakened. They opened their mouths wide and bit him with sharp screams. Su Jinyue screamed sharply. The awakening of those human-faced ghost sores was as terrible as being devoured by thousands of ghosts. The intense pain caused her to scream uncontrollably. Lu Tong was trying his best to control the human-faced ghost sores in her body. It wasn't as if he had never seen such a dark poison formed from yin qi before. However, what he encountered this time was exceptionally strange. The yin qi in the other party's body seemed to be inexhaustible. Lu Tong tried his best to use his medical skills to expel the yin qi from the man's body. He hoped that the human-faced ghost sores would calm down and then remove them one by one. However, the human-faced ghost sores were not affected at all. Instead, they became more and more aggressive. In the end, he had no choice but to retreat. Elder Xia, I can't. This poison is too strange. I can't cure it. He was sweating profusely as he walked to Elder Xia. What? You're the most outstanding disciple of the Outer Sect's Pill Hall. You're actually unable to cure this poison? Elder Xia's face was stunned. He remembered that he had just said that evil Dr. Ghost Pupil was nothing special and that he didn't need to personally deal with him. His tone was full of contempt. Now, he had slapped himself in the face. For a time, his face was a bit ugly. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.